Ho, 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 ho. This is Dr. Lariat, and I feel the holiday spirit in me. So this is gonna be off the rip, a little bit of holiday magic. This is Doc, aka Hickory Dickory Doc, aka Barson Brown, aka Santa Claus, aka no L's because I haven't taken an L this year. This is the state of wrestling. Joining me, of course, on this, as always, is mi pareja, my helper elf. Not helper elf. He's sort of like the sergeant at arms here at the prescription. We got here the EVP of the prescription. I got with me Arturo, American Numbers. How you doing, brother?
Felicidades a todos. Aquí estamos con los tres reyes magos de la información para todos ustedes. Y vamos a hablar de los negocios y vamos a hablar del estado de la lucha libre. And I'm doing a little bit of a long-winded intro because I know Doc is struggling a little bit. So I'm helping.
Yeah.
Yes, Merry Christmas to all. And we're gonna talk some big news, I think. And for that, I think we've got the perfect guest, Larry, right?
Yes. Because, on the holiday season, what's a better gift to give than a BJ? We have here to give to you guys, of course, BJ Bethel. Welcome again. Welcome to the family. I'm big on family, big on this connection, big on friendship. And, I consider you a part of the prescription family. Welcome here, man. Always good to have you. At the holiday season, it's always great to have people that you want to be around you. And happy to have you here, brother.
Well, thank you. That's very touching. I appreciate it, and being on the show has been one of my favorite things to do this year. So thanks for having me back, and Merry Christmas to all you guys, and I hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. And Doc, you should really go see the doctor about that cough.
Oh, dude. I have.
We'll make it through it, man. I'm glad I'm here to help us through it.
Yeah, this is my second round of antibiotics, man. It's been crazy. But I'm good. I'm good. My wife got mad at me because I got her sick, and when your wife gets sick, you kind of like have to take the brunt of the fall because I slept in another room. I wore a mask around the house, but she still got sick. So what can you do? What can you do? Last time we talked, because sort of just we sort of like have this sort of union here where things just sort of happen before we talk, and we've been talking about this WBD purchase since I first did this first episode with Arturo back in June, and then you joined us, and it's sort of been a weird travel because now we're at this part where allegedly Netflix has purchased WBD in some sort of way. They did that announcement on their Twitter. So it's been a week since that happened. And I know Arturo has sort of a timeline.
By the way, Netflix sent an email to subscribers a couple of days ago, basically saying they bought all these properties, and now Harry Potter and Batman are going to be available on their properties. They said that. I got that email somewhere in my inbox. I mean, like the timeline, and we got people like the timeline. I see it is, I think, kind of from what we've seen. I think essentially WBD was always going to do their split. They were always going to do the split where they're going to split off the linear networks, and they wanted to merge with someone. And it's been kind of bubbling around for about 2 years out of the media sources. It does seem like it was initially the plan that they were going to do with Comcast. They coordinated with Comcast on doing this. This is kind of my opinion, reading everything and seeing that was the plan initially. Staslav is a GE guy or Comcast guy originally. He's from NBC. I think he was kind of planning to go back. I think they wanted him back. They're kind of working together. And I'm at like full disclosure, I'm an XG employee, so I kind of know the system. And it doesn't surprise me that like they do what is called the due diligence. So essentially, like, and I think I've talked about before where I think like they did a due diligence for WWE at one point, which fell through, which is essentially you're talking to the person you're going to merge. You start coming up with like a shadow cabinet more or less, and you start like organizing the way things are going to work, talk about how you're going to split the business. I think Versant, which is the split Comcast company and the split they're going to do for the linear networks, was very possibly coordinated by whoever the shadow executives or people who were handling this due diligence. So they're probably like doing coordination of the things that they were doing. And I think they were always planning about Comcast. Paramount steps in because they want CNN. There's a whole kind of litany of things why they want that. But essentially, if you read kind of the press releases, particularly from Zaslav and from WBD, they never wanted Paramount and they never wanted that bid. And they only really used that bid to drive up the price. They very publicly told them off twice. Like said, like, no, we're not, like we said, we don't want you, twice publicly through their like friendly press. And then it kind of happened that Netflix was very cash heavy and has a very vested interest in getting the IPs because like they want those IPs, they want HBO. There's a very good fit for them. They had a bunch of money and they came in with a really hot offer for WBD. And while they don't want Paramount, Netflix is a very good partner for WBD in terms of like the synergies, in terms of what they want. And really, I was joking basically that Netflix just couldn't have Arrow. Like I'm a big CW DC Heroes, and Arrow is coming off of Netflix this month. And I was like, no, they couldn't have Arrow go off Netflix. So they come in with like a higher bid. And I think like essentially like they basically blew the WB offer off the table. Sorry, the Comcast offer off the table. And WBD and Netflix agreed in principle to the deal. Now, obviously,
I believe their offer was 83 billion to what was revealed as Paramount's 60 billion. I think that was
basically they said they were gonna pay it was a straight cash offer. They were gonna pay for all the penalties. So essentially, the reason this matters is what this means is, so to use a comparison, when WWE was bought, it was a leveraged buyout, and essentially WWE had to assume like the Endeavor, the new company, had to TKO had to assume a bunch of debt, which is basically something WWE is carrying. In this particular case, Netflix is basically saying like, no, we're paying for this straight. We'll pay for the penalty, and you don't have to. Your books are going to be clean, which was a key thing for WB because like what Sasla was trying to do with the split, which is the same thing Comcast did, is they were trying to split the linear networks and all their debt into that like linear network company. The Versant company, which is the split from NBC, is going to have all the debt. The intention was all the linear networks, TBS, TNT, was going to have all the debt for WB. And essentially that was going to have like the clean books because essentially then you're not operating debt. And, you know, basically they can sell the IP. Basically they were going to like retarget. And Netflix is saying like, yeah, we agree. We're going to pay all that off. We're not interested in linear networks and you won't have to carry any debt. And, you know, everything that they wanted, they got from Netflix, including a higher price. And it really, honestly, I mean, Peacock was a good partner as a streamer, but Netflix is a better partner as a streamer, right? This is, to me, again, the timeline. And now Paramount is stepping in, trying to do a hostile takeover, which I believe that like Stafflove is going to reject it out of hand. This is my suspicion. And even if WBD is kind of trying, Paramount is trying to set the table saying they're being treated unfairly because I'm assuming they're trying to get they're either going to try to sue or get the stockholders to sue. But that's not going to matter because, again, like these companies, when they do this, the board chooses the offer they want and they treat the lawsuit as a sunk cost. They're assuming like they're going to get sued. We're going to pay a haircut. We're going to pay some money to the stockholders to make good, but we'll pick the offer that we want. They clearly want the Netflix offer and they're kind of acting in public like they want it.
I do have this question for you guys. So the 5.8 billion, I think that was a Netflix thing, is 5.8 billion if the deal is not consummated. And what is the importance of that number? Because I think Paramount said they would bring up theirs to 5 billion. So what's the importance of that non-consummation fee?
I'll say this. I mean, if you look at their debt, I think projected to be toward the end of the year next year when they do the split, the plan is to have the streaming service, the Warner Streaming and Studios, would have about $6 billion in debt.
Wow.
So if this were not to happen, let's say if it doesn't pass through the regulators, Netflix pays them like a $5.8 billion fee. cash fee because the deal didn't go through, and this was part of the agreement they'd signed, and that seems to match up pretty nice with that.
Yeah, it's
That
essentially
might
like
be one reason. That's just a guess, but
it's a very good guess.
yeah, but these things are these. This is another way of sweetening the pot for Warner Brothers, and another way. It's just another way of sweetening the pot to get the merger to go through for Netflix on their side of it.
Effectively, the way to like, and obviously people are saying like, oh, I think that the Paramount side, my expectation on the Paramount side is they'll probably give Trump some money for that silly East Wing thing. That's Netflix will give him some money. So Netflix will have to pay the White House in some indirect way, and Paramount they'll probably end up with CNN and the linear networks, or at least part of that. My expectation is that's going to happen because effectively it's just the kind of thing that like I think they're like I know the White House wants it, and I don't believe Netflix or WB want the linear network, so they're fine selling it, right?
Yeah.
I just don't think Paramount has no shot in getting the I don't believe they have a chance of getting the company at this point, right? Like nobody wants to do it with them, right? And
Well,
also, Ellison, there's
interesting thing with this is that there's okay. So this is how hard Paramount's been playing this. They made their seventh bid on Friday, last Friday, when Warner Brothers agreed to the merger with Netflix. That was the $30 per share order or per share offer that was made on Monday in the hostile bid. So that was the one that was over $100 billion. The interesting thing is this just shows how inept David Ellison has handled all this, where it went from basically most of Hollywood and business really excited that he was coming into Paramount, and Skydance has been successful, mainly because of Tom Cruise. And they looked at, fresh young CEO, tech money, that's going to be good. Well, then immediately I guess he's always had eyes on Warner as part of this. He wants to take on Netflix, and Prime is one of the top streamers. And everything since then, since the Paramount Skydance deal, has just been an absolute mess. And part of it is just like this was seventh bid. Well, part of the bid was he basically told Zaslav, we're not going to just have a $30 per share offer. We're probably going to have another offer bigger than this too. So why would you even entertain the bid or the hostile bid if they've already told you they're going to offer you another bid that's going to be bigger?
Well, the other part about this is that the offer that Paramount is coming with, it is not a cash offer. It is not an offer that's going to clear the debt. Essentially, it is an offer. It's an offer that they're talking about Saudi money. The Saudis. There's a whole documented thing about the Saudi wealth fund being kind of short and strapped for cash. So I would suspect that the offer that Paramount's coming in is going to be net more, but it's gonna be a little bit more vaporware, right? Like they're not. There's no way they're coming in at the point that Netflix is in terms of cleaning the books. And again, there's and I don't know if you read the trades, but there's been a fairly massive kind of wistful campaign against Ellison, right, in terms of the things that he's done and the things he hasn't done. So there's a clear kind of the end game. Essentially, the regulators can the way this is going. As I said, the way this is going to work is they're going to have to, but Netflix is probably have to give some sort of payout. But I don't believe Paramount in any way, shape, or form can kind of force at worst they can get to a point where the shareholders sue WB for a payoff, right? But that'll get settled. It's not the WE thing where that. We should talk about that. We should talk about the WE lawsuit and why TKO's that lawsuit kind of linger.
Oh man.
But anyway,
there was this speaking of TKO, because they had this new, I guess they have a new sponsorship thing, but they did recently just announce that they're gonna have a card for TKO boxing in January, and today
oh god,
Oscar De La Hoya released a response to that, completely trashing Zuffa boxing, and coming at it to where fighter pay was is gonna be shit. You're really gonna trust the guys that are trying to change the legislation to get rid of the Ali Act, and like I loved it. Oscar is one of the most theatrical dudes out there, and I absolutely love this sort of takedown because fuck Dana White, fuck TKO, fuck Zuffa. They've done so much damage to fighters, to fighter pay, to the sport. I mean, they've done a lot to raise the they've done a lot to raise their own finances, not so much the fighters. So if you guys have access to that, watch the Oscar De La Hoya takedown of Dana White and Zuffa boxing, because pretty interesting stuff there.
I mean, I think getting back to like the top of, I'm like, BJ, what do you think in terms of like, does Paramount have any shot at this point?
I mean, they got a shot. They got a really good shot. When you're coming at them with this much money, you always have a shot. But here's the thing that people need to realize is that these bids, both of them, and even the Comcast bid, which supposedly, there was one report that they took their offer off the table. And I've also heard things that they may be combining something with a potential deal with Netflix, which
Because
is something that goes back before this started. But
yeah,
I
because
think
Netflix is
with
on all
Paramount,
Xfinity's on Comcast's cable system. So when you get Comcast cable for
yes,
Xfinity, you also get access to Netflix. Sorry, BJ. Go
yes.
ahead.
So there's already a relationship there. I think the problem with this whole situation is these. If you look at antitrust law and monopolies and things like this, and that stuff's eroded so much over the years. But just you're talking about with Paramount, it's just like there's just so many issues. I mean, they're talking about what a regulatory nightmare Netflix would be. Well, if they combine with the linear Discovery networks, they're going to jump over Disney as far as the number one market share in in TV channels. They're going to they're going to take over a huge chunk of the market. There's huge regulatory issues there. There's also where Ellison's basically bragging to everybody. He's even putting this in emails to shareholders at Warner Brothers and the board that, look, we have Trump in our pocket, so we're going to be able to do whatever we want. Well, I don't think that's really a good message to send, one, to people that we bought off the president. Two, I don't think that's really something that it's smart to say when Trump's listening, because Trump likes to he likes to make new friends. He likes to get new people under his thumb. He's got the Ellisons under his thumb. What's he to gain by letting them have this?
Yeah,
I mean,
this is why I say like,
CNN. What's that?
I was gonna say, yeah, basically this is all leading to the East Wing brought to you by Netflix.
Yes, it is. It's like, okay. I mean, it just gives him it. I mean, it's. I mean, you've already had Comcast and Warner Brothers and other companies come to them over this, and I don't think they understand something here, and that is having the Saudis, the Qatar, and Abu Dhabi all involved in this, because the Ellisons have put up their own money. They got $12 billion of this in this deal. Redbird Capital's involved. Apollo Management Group, which is one of the most vicious hedge funds on Earth, is also part of this. But you also have three sovereign governments, Middle Eastern dictatorship and public investment funds involved with this. Now, it might be cool for the tech billionaires and the big businessmen to go over there and court this jackass. MBS or whatever they call him, or whatever. He should be called SOB. But you still have to get this past people, where it's like, okay, guess what? Bugs Bunny's now owned partially by Mohammed bin Salam, who had an American journalist butchered to death in an embassy while his wife sat outside, by a country that sponsors terrorism and is still in the dark ages. And I don't give a shit about what they say about him trying to moderate things and reforms. I mean, he could do, if he wanted it to be moderate and reformed, he would do it. And That's a huge issue for them. There's other problems. You know, they got as many to me, that's the biggest regulatory minefield of all. You
I,
know, I mean, Netflix is rife with them as well. It's just like you know, I've hinted at this before, and I kind of started saying it last week and tweeting it out. Is that there's a good chance people are wondering, well, how's this going to affect AEW? How's this going to affect AEW? There's a chance that this thing isn't resolved by the time AEW's deal is up.
I've made the point, and I've talked about this, like, and it goes back to my due diligence point. It's like I think if they were doing due diligence, Comcast with a deal with WB, I think it's very possible they looked at their books and said, like, why would we keep why would we keep the WWE contract if we have a better performing, cheaper alternative that is, or equivalent performing in terms of like ratings and ad buys, that we partly own? I think it's going to be the same thing where, like, I think if Netflix goes through,
You talking about AEW, or you
I'm talking
talking
about
about?
it. I'm talking about AEW. I'm talking about, like,
Yeah.
whoever owns WB is going to own a piece of AEW.
Well,
And
that there's always been that rumor. It's never been confirmed, but
I
supposedly
I've heard from sources that are not willing to confirm, but, like, I think, like, it's very solid that they own a piece, right?
yeah.
I think that plays into,
And this gets into another thing where, okay, if you're dealing with WWE, you're also competing with them too, because they're on so many different platforms.
Yes.
That's kind of their strategy to do this, and they want to kill the market for
versus
any.
AEW, which gets better ad rates, comparable
Yeah.
ratings, and
Yeah.
is a sweetheart. Like, TK, by all accounts, has a great relationship with his business partner, and he doesn't shop around. So
Yeah.
essentially, if you're Netflix, I would suspect, given Netflix history, that if they do this, the thing that's in peril is a WWE contract with Netflix. Like, I think that Netflix would probably be looking for the out, at least in the US, right?
It's
They're not
interesting.
doing very good.
Yeah.
It's the Netflix. Oh, everyone knew going in. WWE knew going in this that they were going to have issues keeping the same viewers they had, and those issues start with things well beyond WWE's control, which is demographically, Netflix does not line up well for WWE and Raw. It's also an issue where you know they're underperforming every week. And you know, and those global reading, you know, Meltzer's talked about this, and this other thing is that the global numbers that they're putting out every week for the most viewed shows are probably 20 to 30% overestimated. And with Raw, anyway, that's the truth, because with Raw, the live audience is something else they don't really do with any other show. So
Yeah.
those live numbers are really off compared to everybody else.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think one thing that's really kind of Alan Farrell. Alan Farrell put this out this week, and it's a really brilliant observation. I've mentioned this before, which is the boom periods in wrestling are driven by access, right? You have to have access to wrestling. When wrestling is available for people to watch, that's when the boom periods hit. And this latest boom period for WWE hit because they were on Comcast, and Comcast put them on everything, right? So Peacock, they're being bundled on Peacock, they were on everything. And I said, when they left Peacock and went to this Netflix deal, I said, and now with that ESPN, they're putting up a paywall between them and their customers, and this is going to cycle them down. And it's going to be a problem because it's going to cycle them down. It's going to put them into a downturn. But again, the business is cyclical. We know it's coming. And it's going to put them in a downturn in a spot where they're, like, not available to people, and they have a debt service. And I'm calling this kind of the beginning of a hot period for the AEW a little bit, where, like, they're seeing, like, some step up in their numbers and TV numbers. Is being driven by the fact that they're available more, because now they're available in more homes and they're more available for more people. And again, I think ultimately the mistake, right, from wrestling perspective, is that, and I've talked about this for things like Bugs Bunny and things for, like, and I think Salzlov did a good job figuring that out. Is like, if you want your IP to be valuable, you gotta get in front of eyeballs, right? If you don't get things in front of eyeballs, then people kind of, like, forget this. And, like, you were talking about the Oscar De La Hoya thing, and the point that Oscar De La Hoya made that was really good is, like, who are these UFC fighters? I don't know any of these guys. And it's the same problem that he says is going to happen to the boxers. We're like, they're going to be on this. It's It's happening somewhere. It's gonna be behind the paywall, and like these people are not going to be made into stars. And essentially, that's kind of going to be the problem for WWE. I think is if they're less accessible to people, then it's really hard for them to. There's going to be really hard for them to build new stars if people can't see who these fucking guys, these people are.
I can tell you right now, just anecdotally, with people I work with who are in their 20s and 30s, like they're checking out AEW just because
It's
you know
available.
we used to have WWE Network, and I paid for that every month. I loved it, and I could watch reruns of the shows, and I could watch every pay-per-view for free. Well, then they
Not,
get on
but
Peacock. Oh, it's not too bad paying $10 a month. Well, now you got to be on Netflix. You got to be on, Sling. You got to have ESPN. And it's that infamous $93 a month number.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you want to watch NXT, you got to have a way to watch CW.
Or you
it's
can
the
get a VPN. Stephanie McMahon has her
are you
code for VPNs on her show, so you can do that and
That's
watch.
sponsored by Stephanie McMahon. Yes.
Yeah.
are you familiar? Are we familiar with the "It's on Tubu" meme? Which is, have you seen the new show? It's on Tubu. It's literally on Eevee. It's on Pondi with that. It's Pooty with ads. It's literally on DP. You can probably find it on Wino. Like you can't. Essentially, when you start fracturing the audience like this, or you start putting up paywalls, you make it so that people are going to be less likely to find your product. And you need, if you're something like wrestling, you need to and again, like territory wrestlers have always, like promoters understood this. You need to have shows on the TV so people can see it, so you can promote the paid shows, right? And this is an old model, and I think and I was joking about this, like they can't, like they don't have anybody who can sell pay-per-view anymore. At least
Hey
in the
BJ,
US, they haven't been able to.
I got a question for you. Have you seen anybody praise the numbers for Survivor Series this year? Has
I
there
haven't heard
been
anybody talk about the numbers.
I haven't seen any copy out there about Survivor Series
No.
numbers at all.
Wait. I will point out that ESPN has a tweet account that all they do is tout ratings. That's all they do. They tout ratings for NHL. They tout ratings for football. They tout anything that's on
really?
ESPN gets touted. Yeah, and they've never mentioned WWE at all. Right?
So
Makes you think, huh?
this is something we've talked about with the WWE. What do they call it? The Ultimate app.
Yeah, the ESPN Ultimate.
Unlimited.
Yeah. So one reason that deal came about. So what Freddie Prinze Jr. said was correct, and I've heard the same thing.
Oh, actually, like
people.
by the way,
And
like
this is why the backlash to what he said, or them, the stupid Sports Illustrated article, it was trying to like say, such and such.
I want to make, but I want to make a point on this, right? People are like, "Who the fuck is Freddie Prinze Jr.? Like, where did he get this from?" I'm like, "Who is Freddie Prinze Jr. married to?"
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
What is Sarah Michelle Gellar doing right now?
Working for Disney.
Yeah, she's doing a Buffy reboot for Disney. Who is the male person that Freddie Prinze Jr. probably talked to get the story?
David Filoni.
Dave Filoni. Who is Dave Filoni? Dave Filoni is the creative director for Lucasfilm, who's being groomed to probably take over Lucasfilm once Kathleen Kennedy retires. So, like, I can literally with 2 seconds of research,
let's not forget that Prinze has been in Hollywood since the mid '90s, and
Prinze has been
level star.
He's a mover.
But
I want to say
he's
this
also
because
been a voice actor he's also been a voice actor in every Star Wars show that Filoni's done. Right?
Oh wow!
I want to.
If you look, and he's like very close to him. They apparently talk about creative. So like I'm like, who did he ask? He asked like somebody was like, oh, who did he hear from? I'm like Dave Filoni, and the person was like, oh, you got a point. It's like, yeah, of course. Like, is Dave Filoni a credible source for this? Yes.
This gets to where, okay, this is where the problem for ESPN is with this deal. And why this happened in the first place is that what I was told was this was probably done as a favor to Ari Emanuel. And it was also a way to try to goose subscribers and to maybe get YouTube TV, others to give them more favorable deals to pull them on. Because I think the ultimate no pun intended. I think the ultimate idea with the ESPN Ultimate app is to have it included in all these streaming cable packages. So it just serves as a carriage fee that ESPN made all their
Yeah,
money on.
this is so people
And that's
understand.
sort of what they were fighting
But to
YouTube
say
TV
this,
with, right?
but to say this is what I'm putting out here is that this is not an ESPN level deal. This was a deal made above them
At
at
Disney,
the
yeah.
Disney executive level. So ESPN can hate it, but right now they're going to get a shot because this was done for other reasons.
Yeah,
Now that
essentially,
doesn't mean it's going to last because right now I don't see any evidence that they're getting. I mean, WWE is not getting the subs on that channel they need to get the kind of
Yeah.
numbers that ESPN would like them to do, and there's just no crossover in that sports audience.
I think
I made this.
they did the math on this,
Let me
and they need to
let
get
me.
like at least 10 million subscribers to match that money that they gave WWE, which is insane to me.
Good
Um,
lord.
I'm gonna make a point on this, which is okay. Here's the reason I know that this was not planned, right? And let me explain why. It's like, when is WrestleMania? And what happens that week? Like, what happens the day of WrestleMania? The day of WrestleMania is day one of the NBA playoffs, right?
and they
So
got 8 game ones.
8 game ones. And here's the thing.
Yes.
And also, it might be LeBron James' last playoff game one. And I was basically saying that, like I said this elsewhere. I said basically, if Jesus Christ comes
You
back,
said this here on this podcast last
I'm
time
gonna
I
repeat.
was
I'm
on.
gonna repeat it. If Jesus Christ comes back that week, right? And he comes back, the only way that ESPN talks to him is to ask him what he thinks about LeBron James' last game one. And the second question might be like, well, you're also the son of a famous father. Like, how do you think Bronny James feels about LeBron James game? Like, seriously, like, because it's just a very much a lack of coordination and lack of planning. It's like, if you knew that you were going to do this, and if you knew this was going to be a thing, you move WrestleMania a week earlier when you're doing this, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, they still
You're
might.
also running you're also running smack dab into the heart of the NCAA tournament,
Oh
Yes.
which
man.
which is where kind of AEW took a beating last year, and then on top of it's the women's tournament, which is getting more and more popular.
Yeah.
And it I know that you can watch, there's only so much space to promote. They're not going to promote WWE over that other stuff
No,
on
I mean, as I
ESPN's
said,
app.
that week, the ESPN I think also has the play-in, so they're gonna they may have the Lakers in the play-in, so they're gonna have play-in. They're gonna have a Knicks playoff game probably. They're gonna have a Lakers playoff game. They're not.
Maybe you know this, but what's the what day is the WrestleMania on? Do you know?
Saturday and Sunday. It's April 16th, I believe.
Okay, so that would be right in the smack of the middle of the beginning of the baseball season too.
Yeah, it's like
They
it's 2 weeks
are.
after the start. Like
Yeah,
after
they'll miss March Madness, but they'll be right in the smack of the debut of the baseball season.
yeah, it's just honestly, it is. To me, essentially, like the way it reads to me, as I said, I mentioned the due diligence. I still think that probably Comcast and WD were coordinating stuff. I think Comcast wanted out of the WE deal. They wanted out. I think WE was scrambling. They went to ESPN. ESPN, as you mentioned, they were doing the carriage fee deal. So they're basically the carriage fee deal is basically ESPN makes their money off the money they get from the cable carriers, because they essentially go like, we have ESPN, we have Monday Night Football, we have baseball, we have NBA. You need to pay us.
Yeah,
And
and that
essentially
would come through your cable subscription,
right. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to raise the carriage fee subscription. And this is again what they sold to the wrestling media. Said like, oh yes, we're gonna get this new unlimited app, and everyone's just gonna give us the higher carriage fee, no fight back. And then all the cable companies like, what the fuck? Why the fuck would we do that? And essentially what's happened is, like, for the most part, it's been essentially it's like I said to Docs, like, what this is gonna wind up is as two fees. So yes, the cable companies will give it to you, but they're not going to give it to you. They're not going to give it to you embedded, right? Because there's no value proposition. You're not losing anything. I have ESPN. I don't have ESPN Unlimited. I can watch all the ESPN games at home. I can't watch WWE, and I don't give a shit, right? I don't need that. Like, if I like the things I get like I get like WWE and like the third camera angle from like from a college football game. Like,
Hey,
okay,
hey Arturo. Um, You know, the only valuable WWE asset right now is AAA, and they're free on YouTube. So
Weirdly enough, I mean, this is interesting. I would. So here's the thing. I think the problem is going to be, and it's going to come down. I think if we want to get into like the weeds for WWE, one really interesting thing, and I don't know if I've mentioned this when BJ's been on, but like that the shareholders for WWE are suing them over the sale to TKO, right? So there is
yeah,
a lawsuit over that, and essentially what it's relevant to what we've talked about before. They're suing them because they feel that
they didn't get
WWE
enough money.
did not meet the fiduciary obligation to get the best price, which honestly it's probably correct. And the reason you do this lawsuit is it's fairly typical. Like basically the board ignores what the stockholders say, and they assume they're going to have to pay out. But the weird part about this is that TKO is not settling this lawsuit, right? Which kind of matches a little bit what they did when the UFC thing. I forget the name of the guy, the Fertitta, who's the guy who's the old UFC guy.
Yeah,
When they
Lorenzo
did
Ferreira.
Lawrence Fertitta, and when they did that,
He's supposed to be the new owner of TNA at some point.
yes, at some point. And essentially they let that ride and basically like spun it off as a thing after they sold the company. So my kind of feel for the reason they might be letting this go is maybe they're thinking about selling WWE next year. And I mean, I know that that's been in the air that they might sell it to the Saudis, who are kind of like Saudis are looking for things that generate cash because I don't know if you're like familiar with things like The Line and some of the other boondoggle projects that the Saudi Wealth Fund was doing. The Saudi Wealth Fund has basically like spent money like a drunken sailor for the last 10 years. And essentially they're supposed to spend money to generate cash in the future, but they've been spending it on like very shitty things, right? And so now they like need to buy things that actually generate money, right? So that's kind of what's driving that. And I think that they
This was
might
just why Trump helped him out by putting MBS in front of all the corporate overlords of the United States at a White House dinner.
Yeah,
yes, that's
holding
exactly
his
what's going on.
hand, staring at him with those fluttery eyes.
I'm
Yes,
going to ask you two a serious question. You remember the orb, right?
yes, I
Yeah,
remember the orb.
Where's the orb at? Why is it not on the desk with his FIFA Peace Prize? I mean, where's the freaking orb?
I don't,
Did,
I
did
don't know what
Biden take it, not give it back? I mean, what's the deal with the
BJ.
orb?
I'm assuming it's on the line, man.
Oh God,
Yes, I'm assuming the orb is on the
you,
line.
you know,
But
like when they put their
it's
hands
gotta
on
be.
it, it looked like it was absorbing all the souls of the departed who were creating the line, and building up Neon. Those are all where all the lost souls get
oh, the
absorbed
neon.
into.
I forget about neon too. The point being, like, so I think that, like, honestly and truly, I think that like AEW to me is in a much more stable spot than WWE is in terms of like I think like they kind of see the ticket sales, and I think that because I don't think that TKO is going to want. I'm not convinced that they're going to want to go through a downturn, right? Because again, we're wrestling fans. We understand that like the business is cyclical, right? Like promotions
Yes.
go up and promotions go down, and WWE has isolated themselves from this by going business to business on revenue, right?
Mm.
But now they're getting into a spot where like they basically pissed off all their business partners like by shopping around, and like
Yes.
as they go into a downturn with debt, and if their partners are like, I mean, Comcast already walked away, but Netflix historically, I mean, I remember like Netflix is not a partner that like likes to. They have a limit to how many years they stick with a franchise, right? And I think like the entire thing with running back to the sale, the reason Netflix is doing the whole WB acquisition is they said we need a studio that we own that produces great IP, and essentially WB has the cachet now as being the hit maker, right? Nobody's had a bigger winning streak than Saslov in terms of like producing like valuable movies and shows, right? Through
Yeah.
HBO and through Warner. So essentially, what Netflix is saying is like instead of us going out and buying all this IP, we want to like own it and produce it in house as much as we can. And they also like for once like, hey, like Netflix actually really values the Warner library, the Warner movies, the Warner cartoons, all that stuff is incredibly valuable IP if you're a streamer, right? Like for them, it's extremely valuable. They can basically like, they can market that globally, right? It's an IP
Yeah.
that helps them like across the board. Um,
And
So,
let's
so
not forget, Ellison said this kind of matter of factly and stupidly that they're going to absorb HBO Max into Paramount Plus. So whatever studio offerings they have, everything from WBD is gonna be
I,
absorbed into Paramount,
I
which
low key
means
think
massive synergies, aka layoffs. But Netflix now, I mean, we'll see how this holds after 2 or 3 years. Their plans right now, and according to the merger agreement, according to Zaslav, is they're going to keep HBO Max completely separate.
I would suggest. I mean, like my feeling is that Netflix really wants HBO to be like their elite, basically their elite tier service, right? So I suspect where Netflix is kind of going with this is they're going to have the basic Netflix service, and HBO Max is going to be the premium
Hey,
service, right?
hey,
And
hey, guys, what is the HBO saying? It's not TV, it's
it's
HBO.
HBO.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that and I think that because I think they understand that there's value in having a premium brand. I mean, it's I think like even like kind of Discovery and Warner kind of learned that like they tried to do the Discovery thing and they were like, right, this like like honestly, give credit to Saslav because somebody told him to do this the stupid Max thing and like he eventually realized that was stupid and he corrected, which is like not a thing a lot of these execs do, right? So I do think that there's
Well, look
some.
at Ellison. I mean, that guy's never, you can tell he's never been told no in his entire life.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. Those people sort of like breed around other people, and
I mean,
maybe
he's
that's why
telling
him and Trump
media
get
sources
so.
he's upset because Zaslav was ghosting him over the weekend. It's
I
like,
mean,
Oh man,
I
that
think
was
well,
hilarious.
the thing to me is like, so you read
Zaslav getting a free
BJ, no,
lunch like
BJ,
Naito.
you read. I would say you BJ, you read trades, right? If you're like me, you read trades. I read trades. I read blinds.
I read them with the knowledge that are not the best journalism. Let's
Well,
just
but
say
no,
a lot of it's bought and paid for.
it's the same thing as like when I read sources for NBA, right? The way you have to read these in a very particular way. You have to understand that when somebody's dropping a source, who is dropping the source, who is the reporter, who is he tied to, right? Who is he doing like the like it's like when you used to get Waj or Windhorse like will tweet something out for NBA. Like if you know, and I've been in the circles with NBA, I've known people on teams, I've
Shout out to you, Pablo
consulted.
Torre.
Yeah, but like generally these guys are doing favors for their guys, and they're like doing releases for their sides. You can tell who is talking to the player or who is talking to the team on these trades. Same thing here. So they really have to like. So Ellison does not know how to play the game, right? And when I was reading the stuff, like to me, it was clear that Warner Brother was putting the word out on the street that they were like, "Fuck no, we're not doing it." Like the Warner Brother board was putting out through Zaslav that they were not going to do the Paramount deal. And they put it in every trade. Basically, they kind of said that. And Elson doesn't understand. And then they're also like, there's all these stories floating around how terrible Elson is and how bad he is for creators and like the mergers and that. Like that's the
There
war
was
whispers that happen in Hollywood.
there was this story about Ellison went to the last Mission Impossible set, right? And basically, Tom Cruise said he couldn't be in the same building as him anytime they were filming.
Yeah,
So
I saw that. Like it's Tom Cruise. It's like that is a story. That is a very Hollywood story designed to get the entire town to hate you, right? Like I mean that's like I mean that's like the story with the two wrestlers who went in what's the two female wrestlers who went into AEW and didn't want a job to tie
Oh,
and
Tegan
they
Knox and
yeah, and I was like, I was joking. Did they basically like they basically find Okada and tell him that Ultimo Dragon sucks, and then like find Emmy and like tell her that Queen is terrible or something like and like find -1 and put him through a table or something like just like the kind of story that is put out there just when somebody wants to like bury you in Hollywood is like Tom Cruise does not want to be in the same building as you.
yes.
Okay.
Well, that was the thing was is they really buried themselves. They did it on TV, and then they're in the ring with Megan Bain, who's maybe the strongest woman in the division or close to it, and being built like a monster, and Marina Shafir, who's probably the most dangerous human being in the locker room right now. And then you go in there and you're going to stiff them and try to make their spots
Ooh,
look bad.
doesn't make any sense. And they're like, oh, but they didn't have any. No, that's fine. They didn't have anything for us. Yes, I told you, go the fuck
of
away.
Yeah.
anybody, you choose those two, and then I guess they didn't want to lose to I mean,
They
they
didn't
were
want
gonna
to
go
lose to
face the
Tay
other
Mello and
shooter.
Anna Jay, who just happened
Yeah,
to be the longest tenured tag team, women's tag team in AEW. Maybe in women's wrestling right now. They've been paired
yeah.
together for. I mean, they wrestled the first tag team hardcore women's match on national TV ever
I
when they
just
wrestled.
wanted to see, if they would have tried that again on another shooter. Tay, she's like a legit judoka black belt, legit BJJ black
Oh
belt.
yeah,
I would
she
have
was on the Brazilian Olympic team
would have
as an
loved to see
alternate as
them
a
try
judo.
to sandbag another, but like it's just funny.
Isn't am I confusing? Isn't Anna Jay a former Marine?
I'm not sure, but she did
I
practice
thought,
karate
or
under Glacier.
am I
I'm not sure.
confused?
Well, just think of it politically. I mean, Tay Mello is married and has a kid with Sammy Guevara, who's been there since day one, and Anna Jay's dating Jungle Boy, and both of them are very popular backstage and loved. And it's like you could not have done more if you wanted to do maximum damage to yourself in that company. They could have not
Man.
picked a better way to do it.
Hey, did you guys watch Dynamite last night?
Uh,
Yes.
Yeah, Jungle Boy can
I
eat a
still need to
dick.
rewatch it, but I heard it was very good.
Um, yeah, I just wanted to say that that's not said like as a derogatory way, but Jungle Boy can eat a dick. Um, anyway, um, it's it's honestly this whole business thing is it's liquid. It's always moving. It's not done yet. Probably won't see much. We'll see a lot more over the next 6 months on that, and it's just very interesting. That we are not gonna be at the end point yet, and we don't know who's gonna win this yet. But
Well,
there's
they're
a lot
saying
to the
now that
story.
it could be 6 to 8 months before they even figure out who is going to be the supposed merger winner. And then they get to the point where that gets you to the point where you go through the regulatory process.
Yeah, will the
So you're
FTC?
already before that, you're looking at a 12 month to 18. This is what Ellison said himself. And this is one pitch he made to.
I would treat anything that Elson says about this with a very
Well,
large
this
grain
is one
of salt.
thing I think he had a point on, which is through the regulatory process, it would take 12 to 18 months for an approval for Netflix, and for Paramount, it would be 12 months, which is that's pretty close. 12 months is what I've heard for anybody of the three major bidders that were looking into this. But you
Yeah.
add, okay, you get to that. Where does that get you to the end of 2027? Collapse further. If you add another 6 to 8 months to it, they're gonna AEW is already in their open shopping position to go looking
I
for
would
another channel if they wanted to.
I would assume that Warner has, because they've been working on this for a while. I think they've got a lot of the work done. So I would say it's probably close to 12 months. I think that ultimately, as I said, I think that Netflix will meet whatever price the White House sets, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that
What's interesting to me on all this is that CNN is just at the center of all this. And last year, CNN was up. Warner was trying to sell CNN off separately, and they were looking at they were talking to like Cox Media Group, who I used to work for, who owns a bunch of local TV affiliates. That's who was in league for CNN. But now that Trump's in office and he's obsessed with cable news, all of a sudden it's an important property to
nobody
manage.
nobody cares.
I think they
No,
This is
killed. Didn't WB killed the CNN app, right? That they tried to make a
I
thing.
think they did. I mean,
Yeah.
Zaslav really killed CNN as a brand when he brought in somebody to try to remake it as a moderate to right wing kind of heavy network, while cutting all their international bureaus. It's like seeing it. It's like everybody watches. If you're a news watch, if you're a cable news channel watcher, you're tendally probably a little bit older, or you just like to hear the arguing, or you're just really into that and you want to hear your beliefs blasted back at you. But when there's a really huge news event, you would always turn on CNN.
Yeah.
But like I worked at a Fox affiliate, and when some shit went down nationally, when Trump got shot, what did our stations do? We put it on the CNN network.
That's
That's
It's
the
fair. I
feed
mean,
we went to.
I mean,
But
I
that's
just don't.
gone now. It's not the same. It's not the same CNN, and um, it's. I mean, Zaslav would probably make it the all Trump channel if they thought it would work, and it'd still get the same 400, 500,000 viewers, it typically does. Maybe less. It gets less than that now. That was a few years ago, but
Yeah.
I mean, they would have loved to have 400, 500,000 viewers in prime time even. Um, but it's I think this process is going to be because this is where even if you get through the federal legislation, and you already had Republicans and Democrats in the Senate saying, we don't like the Paramount side of this, we don't like the Netflix side of this, we don't like how this is going, period. Then you're going to get to the unions. Then you got to deal with Gavin Newsom because this is a huge part of the California economy. Then you also got to deal with all the state attorney generals. You also got to deal with all the third-party companies involved. You're going to have to deal with different tech companies that are involved in part of this. There's other broadcasters. You also have the affiliates who are going to be ticked off. Already ticked off at all this because now they're all having, all these small stations and local affiliates are having to try to build their own apps because they can't get audience anymore through the cable ones because they're getting streamed because of cost. And then on top of that, you're going to have there's other challenges on top of this that we're not even going to know about yet. And you're looking at this as going to be years of this is potential years of lawsuits and lawsuits on top of lawsuits on top of lawsuits. And I think I think there's as good a chance of this merger not happening as it does happening at all.
I mean, I think that
it probably finishes when we have a new president.
That could be the time. I mean, it could happen that way.
I
I
mean,
mean, look how Paramount Skydance was considered pretty. I mean, it was considered difficult, and it went over a year before finalization. And this one is just, Paramount, they got bought for $8 billion. You're looking at $100 billion deal with this one, plus a lot more market. And this is going to be tremendously tougher to get through with either Netflix or them or even Comcast. I mean, one thing with Comcast was there was enough corporate culture there where they could kind of work things out. And I think if the merger does happen, and I think it's likely to will, you're going to see this done in a way where they're going to try to minimize job losses, and everybody's probably going to end up with a piece. It wouldn't surprise me if Paramount ended up with the linear networks, like you said, Arturo, and it wouldn't surprise me if Comcast ended up, having a more of a play in this than they do right now. I could see them bouncing back into this not as a bidder, but as a partner to Netflix or something where they're part of this to kind of make it regulatory acceptable.
what part? I mean, like the part that was, I know from going back, the part that was really interesting for Comcast was some of the sports parts were really interesting for Comcast. I think like the capability for NBA and that was touted the capability for the NBA broadcasting, some of the MLB broadcasting that TNT used to do. And TBS used to do,
Yes.
I think was really interesting. So I think that to your point, you could see like Comcast acquiring pieces of that, the live sports piece, which I don't think the live sports piece is a piece that like Netflix is really into. So I think that you could see Comcast. This is me speculating, but again, this is from going from the early reporting on Comcast and what I know of what they want. I think that like you could see the live sports piece moving to Comcast, and you could see. And I could see, like, again, like things like, they have the college, like a lot of the contracts that they have. So I think a lot of the live sports piece could move to like, it'd be weird if like they end up like with AEW ends up on Peacock out of this. But like, anyway, but like I could see the live sports kind of moving in that direction. I could see the IP and like, so essentially what Netflix really wants. Netflix wants the IP, and they want HBO, and they want the studio. These are three things that like. And Netflix wants. If they get those three pieces, right, I could see Paramount getting the TV linear networks, and I could see Comcast coming in for like the sports to kind of put their whole sports package that they're kind of building around.
Because they're talking about TNT Sports being sold separately.
Yes,
as part of like the assets of their. Just to
and
like clarify for the audience out there, if you're selling these rights, these things come in pieces. So selling these pieces of the network to whatever, that's how things can happen. Just for the layman out there.
Yeah, I think that there's a play there. I don't know that Netflix necessarily. I don't know that Netflix necessarily is interested. Like, I think the live sports piece is a piece that I don't think Netflix is very interested in. right? They've dabbled,
They've
but
pretty much. I don't know if this is because of Raw or because of some of the experiments they've done with like putting pro sports on. But unless it's a major event, they're not interested.
no.
They pretty much have said that. Another thing that's interesting in what you guys have said is that when Discovery Networks, this has kind of caused a lot of Warner Brothers employees to get pissed off, is because Zaslav has come out and said he doesn't think, I guess overall in the big picture, the sports numbers that they've had, and a lot of that they've lost the NBA, so this is a big part of it, aren't doing that well on HBO Max overall. So at the same time he's selling that, Discovery is announcing when they split off, they're going to form a TNT Sports app because they do have some college leagues, they do got some other things, they do have the NHL, um, and they do have MLB, especially in the playoffs, and they have some games during the season. But that was one thing that caused a
I
lot of
think
people mad.
so. I think the initial plan, and again, this is me speculating based on what I read. I think the initial plan was that the sports piece was all going to go like they were going to get the TNT Sports to Comcast, and but then a lot of those contracts were going to go with linear networks to Versant, right? Because the Versant play, if you've read anything, Versant is the NBC spinoff,
Yes.
is a sports play with the golf channel and like a lot of like, and they really also like it would kind of fit with the CNN brand with the MSN, like, so there was a synergy there in how they were setting up. And as I said, like a lot of the stuff, I think again, I suspect there were people very specifically kind of tasked with setting up what the new company was going to be, and
Yes.
I think some of this stuff has already happened. So again, I think I would lean towards this moving faster because I think that behind closed doors, there's a picture about what they need to do that. And as I said, like it's gonna be like the Netflix, like what is it, East Wing brought to you by Netflix, right? And but again, I think ultimately Paramount, and I know that it's kind of weird because Paramount's going to end up with probably going to end up with CNN in my brain, but I know they wanted the other thing, but it doesn't. It just I don't think anyone wants to sell them the studio, and nobody wants to sell them the IP, right? So I think that's the problem for Paramount is nobody wants to sell them that part, which is, and I think the thing is they also kind of, I don't think they like essentially nobody wants to sell Paramount the Warner
Well,
Studios because
there's a
essentially
real problem.
they're just gonna close it. Like why am I selling Warner to Paramount so they can close it? Why am I selling like
Exactly.
HBO for
And I think that on top of that, as soon as they took over, they laid off 14,000 people in two continents, and that's definitely they already have layoff savings patterned into their hostile bid. So it's like, how many jobs do they want to cost? And then the other worry here, and people don't want to estimate this enough. Okay, they paid 8 billion for Paramount. Now they paid 7.7 billion for the UFC for 7 years, which is on a very huge downturn right now. And to give you an idea how much worth, I mean, ESPN, UFC was not going to hit their $1 billion projection unless they got three or four other players involved. ESPN was offering them less than half of what their current deal was, which was 1.5 million over 5 years. So, there's a big chance that the debt just takes Paramount out. I mean, I've heard people say that in a year or two they don't think they're going to be around. Paramount Plus is going to be around anymore,
well, I mean, I think
because of the debt.
it gets back to the point that I was making is these offers, like there's a difference between a cash offer that clears the debt from the table from in terms of running the business and doesn't shut down the studio and keeps it live versus a bet that basically is just buying to shutter the thing and it's just buying against debt. So they're not like really they're not I mean, obviously you still get your money, but effectively the company is not in a good like essentially it's not a good place after it's a
No.
shell company. So essentially like what essentially the way to kind of view it is what Paramount is trying to do is what Discovery did with Warner, right? In terms of how that offer played out, right? And I think that part of this is like I think Sasla was smart enough to know that it took a lot to get out of that hole that they dug themselves into, and he doesn't. And I suspect he probably doesn't think that like Ellison's smart enough to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have, even if he's smart enough, he doesn't have the experience. I mean, there was an offer. There was an offer. One of the offers did have Zaslav staying on as a co-chair, but it didn't list him as co-chair of what.
Yeah, that's
But I mean,
the
if
other
you look at what
thing.
it's taken them to get the debt down for Warner Brothers, and you also look at some of the mistakes Zaslav. I'm not a Zaslav fan because I don't like what he's done to the creative people, but but Ellison has no idea. I mean,
I think
Zaslav at least has 20, 30 years experience at this.
I think I
Even
think I think for Soslov, the first offer from Comcast was about him coming home, and I think they probably wanted him to run. Uh,
yeah,
Probably wanted him to run the TV, the entire like TV streaming side was probably for him, and probably being prepped for the top chair at some point. Because again, he's like, the thing to keep in mind, guys, is Zaslav is an NBC guy, right? So
yes.
like they would be perfectly fine with him being the CEO of
This was yes, the
the,
culture was the fit. I
like
mean, that's
right,
one
if
thing people kind of underestimate is that the money's always going to be big, but I think in this case, because I know originally everyone's like, when I was talking to people and sources and analysts and people who were on their opinions on this, it was like, okay, the money's going to be big no matter what. You're going to get the money, but the culture is the big factor, and Comcast was the player there for them. Like
yeah,
that was the only
I
sensible
think
home.
I
But
think
what
logis-
happened was, is you saw Netflix willing to take out loans, and you also saw Paramount going to. I think some of their cash bids, not the hostile bid, had the very controversial Chinese hedge fund, and then you got three sovereign Middle Eastern funds, and then you got two massive private equity firms involved in it.
I
So
think
that shoved it out a way where Comcast is stock,
I mean,
stock share bid.
I think if Comcast got told that they were going to be able to buy the stuff that they wanted, right? So I think if Comcast got told that, hey, you don't get the whole company, but as part of the merger, we're going to sell you kind of the sports stuff and some of the contracts,
Yeah,
and you're going to get part of the pieces that make sense to you. That makes sense. Like, here's the other part. Like, I think that one thing that makes, like, keep in mind is, like, could Soslov be the CEO of, could you see him being the CEO eventually of Comcast? Yes. Could he be the CEO eventually of Netflix? Possibly, right? So I think that possibly, I don't see he could. There's no way in hell Elson would like give him the big chair
no,
eventually. So essentially, like, first, I would be. I would be like, the other thing that wouldn't shock me is if eventually Soslab would, like, even after the merger, if Netflix actually ends up buying it, they sell some of the parts to Comcast, Soslab winds up back at NBC at a very, very high level, possibly the top chair. Same thing with, like, he might wind up there too. So there's like, some of this is like the executives that are coming in from HBO and from at that top level are executives that are valued because,
yeah.
again, as I've said, this, like,
So this
nobody's
gives me, this is a question I want to ask you, Arturo, is because you've been at GE, you
yes,
understand. I mean, you're giving a lot of great insight here on how it works,
yes.
even when they're just considering a merger or a move like this. So my question to you is, this is about, after seeing Comcast up close and personal, what do you make of David Ellison? And this is something that I ask myself when I see him, and I want to know if you ask yourself the same question. And why is he doing this? Why do you think David Ellison is in this business? Why do you see him doing this? Is this a hobby to him, or is this something that he's always wanted to do? What do you think? Watching
Look,
his actions, seeing what he's doing, what you've known about him or what you've read about him, what's he doing? Why does he want to do this?
Ellison is very rich, right? And I think that, like, we were talking about, like, we were talking about before you came in, I was talking with Larry, and like, some of that happens is once you get to that level of income, right, you need to find things to do with the money, right? And there are different things you can do. You can buy a baseball team. You can buy baseball, like, which is, by the way, the cons do this. The cons buy baseball teams, soccer teams, and like start new businesses where they can sink their cash into as a fund. So I think some of this is driven by the fact that, like, you, at that level, you need to be doing things with the money, right?
Light
You could retire and
diffuse.
start a foundation, like, but essentially, like, you're essentially like doing tax avoidance and the different things that you're doing. I think some of that is being driven by that. I think part of that is also, like, there are interests that he has that are pushing him to, the tech billionaires want to control the narrative, and they want to control, like, the big media narrative. So for their business, it is kind of important. This is the reason why, like, who owns the the Washington Post, right? And like you buy your pet media company that can basically like spin your story. So owning a media empire is a good way for you to create a narrative and push certain kind of things. Story. We talked about like Jewish moguls before, where I'm not going to get into that, but essentially it's a well understood and a well kind of well trod thing when like the mega wealthy want to own media because they want to push a message, right, and a narrative, right. So I think like there's a synergy there. Like he's owning it because of what it lets him do, not because he wants or he sees himself as a media guy, if that makes sense, right?
Okay.
Like the whole so the for the tech guys, the media company is a tool, not the end in itself. And the difference is like
Could you see it as a toy for them too?
no, because there is a very stated. This is how you manipulate the narrative. This is how you kind of like propagate your power, right? Essentially, you turn your money into soft power by
Okay.
using the media, right?
That's
This is kind of
that's a very good
right.
explanation.
Right. You're creating a narrative that you're basically controlling a narrative and driving a story by having this large media company that lets you do that. And also it's a way for you to kind of like manage your money and like put in something that like has a lot of tax benefits and tax shelter. So it's a tax adventure. Like we can get into like why get into Reagan tax law and how this is driving this whole thing and black money and dark money in politics and whatnot. We're not going to, but essentially like the way to kind of think about it is the way these media like super rich billionaires like this is why did Elon buy Twitter? Because you want to create a mechanism for you to turn your money into soft power by buying a media company.
I mean,
Right?
he spent his entire
hey,
at the time his $43 billion net worth, which is now around 200 billion. Plus, you're getting paid in ways that you can't really disclose on a 1040.
Right, by the way, it's like don't listen to me. Just go watch this Citizen Kane. You know,
bingo.
I mean, this is not a new story, right? And I think honestly, the way to kind of also view it from if you're coming at it from a Hollywood business perspective, as you can complain about Zaslav, but like by all accounts, Warner Brothers has been a really good studio for creators over the last like 3 or 4 years. Like they're giving like people like letting them make the movies that they want. They are like, I mean, obviously they had to take some things, but like they're certainly not closing a bunch of things. And like, I mean,
I will say this, that what's really impressed me about their run this year, because they've had, they've been the number one box office, and every movie they've had's made money. What's really impressed me is that they had Superman, the big tent pole, but they have hit every genre, every kind of different movie. You had F1 with Brad Pitt. You had the Minecraft movie, a kids movie. You have Sinners, which was an amazing, innovative, it just it should win. It should just blow away the Oscars, in my opinion.
Well, that's a really interesting movie to bring up because I mean, like, who else makes that movie?
Nobody. Like, that's the thing, is that with Paramount, that movie does not get made ever, and I don't know if it ever gets made at Netflix.
Yeah.
Netflix. I mean, again, I think one thing I like. Remember that Mickey 17 movie? There's some interesting stories around that, but basically, the story goes that like Warner gave Bong Joon-ho final cut and let him do what he wanted, and they understood that like they're probably limiting their box office potential by letting him do that. But from a kind of reputation perspective and how they want to treat creators and artists, they were just like, it's better for us to just let him do what he wants, right?
Yeah.
And give him that freedom, because in the long run, it's something that's going to help us. And I think again, we've seen it with like things like you mentioned Sinners, where like, and some of these like horror universes, where they're letting people just kind of do what they. I mean, Gunn. If you look at some of the stuff that James Gunn is doing with, he's taking some risks with that. I mean, I saw the trailer and I know the source material for the Supergirl movie. And that's going to be really interesting.
Supergirl is pretty interesting because my wife loved the CW show, and it's pretty interesting to see her as a more of a drunk party girl kind of
No,
thing?
no. The way so the way this works is Tom King does a series of graphic novels. Like he's done some great graphic novels. People are mixed on the Tom King graphic novels. He's an ex-CIA guy. He's a writer now. Some of that gets into the work, and so the way to kind of view it is essentially this movie is based on this thing called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And it basically turns her into like a Robert Howard kind of fantasy hero in a way in space. And it's kind of interesting because the way it works is the difference in the origin is that like Kal-El obviously was a baby when he comes to Earth. She was a teenager, so she kind of experiences the whole. So it makes it a little bit like, if you think about it, it makes it a lot more like Conan, where like she's gone through some shit, right? And so kind of like that color is kind of like, and the graphic novel is really good, and it's a really good thing. I'm interested to see how it's going to work. And people have said it like looks like Guardians, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's good. I mean, I trust him with that kind of thing. But the point being that, like, you know, Warner's letting him do some stuff for like some of the critical IP, and I think that's kind of like valuable. And honestly, I think that like you have to have that. And again, ultimately, I think having people who are the executives should be somewhat tied to the creative process, right? You have to be tied to it. That's been the problem in a way for WWE a bit. It's like by going business to business and not going to the customer, you lose that connection, that primal connection. Like ultimately, we're putting on a show, right? People have to like the show you're putting on, right? And there has to be kind of like this connection, this value. And I think that like ultimately that is a key, and like it's key here to me too, right?
I think there's been a lot of things in Cena's run where he could feel that these were TKO decisions and not Triple H or Cena or anybody else making a decision.
I'm gonna push back on that.
You really think so? Because I mean, there's rumors that Brock might be retiring this year, and it's just like it makes me think. Okay, other than maybe TKO getting off on having him come back and then do a squash, it makes no sense to me.
I mean, I think the way this works is the thing that's happening now, probably to Triple H, right? Is Triple H is probably getting a budget, right? So he's basically getting a line item budget that he has to meet these budgets. And like a lot of the decisions that WWE has done over the past, since the acquisition, can be explained by that. When I say that, he gets a salary budget, he has a fixed salary budget, and he has to meet these cuts because that's what they have to do. Like, so if you want additional talent, you either need to cut people, right? And they're not going to tell you how to spend that money. You're going to decide how you spend that money. But this is how you get things like R-Truth getting cut, right? You're gonna have to figure out how to do that. And if you need to bring in additional talent, you're gonna have to like maybe do it through TNA or like another company where like it's not a salary employee. And I think a lot of this too is also kind of the way that room works. The WWE is a company that, if you look back historically, has always relied on rating, right? So they raid talent from other companies and bring it in, and that's how they get hot. And they don't do a really good job at like building talent internally. And we kind of seen that. I mean, this period was driven by Cody, right? By Cody, by they rated and brought him Cody. And then kind of like now they're in a point where like, oh, the next guy's Braun. Like nobody wants to see Braun, right? And like the guys that like they should be pushing, and Larry and I have talked about this, like Dom's the guy that probably should be pushing. But like even then, like
San Diego, like.
Yeah, but so like he's not.
When I was in San Diego for Survivor Series, I just like for like a little bit. So like like how they do their interviews, right? So Dom's riding in like the little golf cart, and then when he's driving by, you have this sea of people, like thousands of people just chasing him. I haven't seen people have a love for somebody like that since Eddie Guerrero. Like I honestly,
I think
it's crazy.
I think that like the thing where God, I forget. God, what's his name? The booker for Vince. What's his name?
Pat Patterson.
Pat Patterson. So Pat was the guy who had the eye for, I think, for the guys who were over. I think that like there's a story about Pat being the guy who loved Sammy. He loved Sami Zayn, and he loved him from the beginning. And he's one of the guys who's kind of pushing him. And I think that like WWE as a company has a bad time identifying the guys that are over with their audience, because like I think that I think that what's going to happen. And what we're heading to is like they're going to try to push Braun, right? And they're going to try to push Braun as a face probably, and it's going to be like Roman but worse, right? Because he doesn't have the juice, right? And like they're trying to like do the whole thing. They're trying to recreate the Shield with this. What's the name of
The
The
Vision.
Visionaries or
Vision,
whatever.
which is like no. I mean the guys who
It's
have
about
like
the lamest stable name I've ever heard in my life. It's like it's like something you would play on a
It was
computer game.
it was literally a Rick Martel Survivor Series team.
Right, and they don't like the guys. They're gonna try to push Braun, and nothing against Braun, but he doesn't have the juice. And maybe the guys like Obafemi might have the juice, but like we know why they're not going to push Obafemi. Jacob Fatu, we know why they're not going to push him too. And
Javon
like
Evans.
Dom is, and Dom, Javon Evans, they're not even going to like try. But like
I just
Dom,
think when you go back, I think this symbolizes everything wrong with them right now. Is when you go back and they do the angle with Cena. He turns babyface in his match against Cody. He loses. He's taking his boots off, and they have Brock come out and squash him. And it's like I'm thinking of 3, 4 other guys who one would have done that spot better, two would have looked better walking down that ramp without killing himself, and three it would have been somebody youthful that would have been somebody new. I mean, I think Braun could be a very effective heel. I think as a baby face, it's going to be a problem. I think a lot of the other guys you mentioned, I think even Dom in that spot, have him go down with a chair.
Okay, but I want you to think about the guys that truly have drawn for WWE. Could they talk?
Yeah, it's true.
Could they talk people into the building?
Yeah.
Did the audience identify with those people?
Yeah.
Right. Do you
right
see,
now they don't have a talker.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, do you think Braun is the guy? Like again, like I think that like I've said this, like the prototypical guy, like the prototypical Vince Senior, not Vince McMahon, but his dad. The prototypical guy who that Vince Senior would have loved and would have made the biggest babyface in this territory is Eddie Kingston, right? Like
Yes.
because Eddie is the ethnic heel underdog that can talk, and
he's the most New York human being ever created.
He was created. If you take that guy, if you take Eddie Kingston back, if he's born 20 years earlier, he's the biggest star in the New York territory, right? Because there's no way Vince Senior doesn't find him.
Imagine him versus Sergeant Slaughter. Oh man.
Oh my god.
The promos would have been epic by themselves.
Like the murder, like him and Bruno, like murder. Like, but the point being that like now, if you look at their roster, like where is the ethnic babyface, or where's the babyface that the crowd is going to love?
But the thing is, they're at a time where you got to move past that. Like they've relied on the Judgment Day. I think was so popular was because Rhea was running it, and it wasn't based on like an ethnic group of people like all their other stables.
Well, no, I don't even mean ethnic. I mean like somebody who is. You need somebody who's New York, somebody who's
who's Sammy. You need somebody unique and real, and somebody that's genuine so the audience can pair with them. And that's not necessarily. I mean, using your ethnicity and sort of being in that you sort of if you're ethnic, you sort of have this connection to other ethnic people and driving that coolness. But because like I absolutely love
who would be the biggest babyface in the world for WWE, and they would never push him. They would never sign him.
Who?
For the next decade, if they got him.
Who's that?
Bandito.
He would be.
He would be ginormous.
Lucha's the future, man. Right now, Lucha's right now what New Japan was 15, 20 years.
Think about the history. Think about Pedro Guerrero. Think about like the guys who got like Pedro Morales. Think about the guys who got over in that territory historically. And think about the guys that would like Bandito would just be like.
I remember watching Bandito 2 years ago. This was before he had that serious injury. He'd already been an ROH champion at that time, but he was wrestling Jericho, who was ROH champion, and they had an absolute amazing match on Dynamite. And I remember Jericho rolling over and whispering into Bandito's ear, and you could just tell he was just glowing to this guy. And I'm thinking this guy could be the top babyface in any company in the world.
Yeah,
and I think that, I think the silent killer babyface heel works, but it's just WWE just has no way of being able to creatively make it because it doesn't fit into the little machine that they have.
I mean, it's just they don't again they said they raid, right? And even Cena as a guy who originally a power plant guy, originally a PW guy, they brought him in. It almost didn't work, and eventually they kind of like figured it out.
Yeah.
But it's a very like interesting. It's a very interesting spot for them because I'm looking at them and I look at the other roster on the other side, and I'm looking at Kyle Fletcher just having like match of the year like work with Speedball on TV, and
Yeah.
just like the embarrassment of riches the other company has. And I don't think they get what their audience wants.
I gotta ask you both this question: what do you guys make of the whole? This has been an argument that Bischoff and others have made, and Matt Hardy's kind of spit into it. That it's all more. You got to have stories, not just great matches, because AEW's devoid of stories. Which you would only think that if you're an idiot or you never watched.
I mean,
pretty much
this thing where people are trying to downplay the importance of how good the matches are.
I think my thing with this has always been that WWE tells stories more towards kids because historically they're more family territory. So what that means, if you've got kids and you've ever watched like Dora the Explorer, Dora comes up and repeats things 5 times an episode, right?
Yes.
Like, is this my bag? Or like she's talking to the monkey and kind of repeating the story points and kind of repeating the story beats. And to them, like that kind of storytelling, or like Sesame Street, we're like, what is today's number? Or like that kind of thing. Like they're repeating the numbers, repeating the story, which is a very kind of like, 3rd grade, 4th grade level of story. That's what they're talking about when they say stories. And again, like WWE, like AEW tells more like, senior level stories, like where you're talking about like a much more level. But like there's like, I mean, like
you got to pay attention to the details.
Well, let me give you an example. Like the Kyle O'Reilly versus Box. If you go back and watch their first match, great Dynamite to rewatch. It's a Dynamite. It's the build up to Forbidden Door. It is Kyle Fletcher and Will Ospreay's first appearance. I think Tanahashi's on that show. They do this battle royal initially. Kyle O'Reilly wins the battle royal, and then he has the Mox match. And if you watch that match, Mox and Kyle O'Reilly, and you watch their entire sequence, there's callbacks through every match. There's callbacks and there's a story being told between these two guys and how kind of their styles match and kind of how like where Mox is at the time and where Mox is now. That is a brilliant story, and it's one of the it's one of the great rivalries for Mox over time, and it's a really kind of over 3 years telling me these stories through these matches with these beats around like their finishers and like how the person's hurt and like the vulnerability, like, and it's just such a great story. And like or like things like I'm watching Willow and Harley, right? And the whole story about like the whole build and how they've kind of like them and kind of like the like their first, like, there's just things that are being done and being told. Or like the whole Monet story about like her having too many titles and not being able to hold them now because she's too distracted.
She can't concentrate.
There's all these there's all these like layered stories being told, right? The whole thing with
we talked about because we talked about like Eddie Kingston earlier, right? So Eddie Kingston versus Samoa Joe was a program built over like 3 weeks, right? Hook does the turn on Collision, like so basically it makes it like Eddie's trying to save Hook from doing what he's doing, and talks about like the respect he has for Samoa Joe, following in his footsteps and walking in the same locker room that he's walked in. And then the match happens, and there's all these little stories in there of like Joe actually going back to his roots of being like a mean son of a bitch, like when Eddie was slapping him. And not to spoil this for you, and then he slaps him back. And then there's a little spot in there where Joe does a little shout out to, his UPW classmate, John Cena. There's these stories in pro wrestling that happen.
And Eddie biting his hand was amazing.
Oh, yeah, there was so much biting on that show. But like when you think about the story of pro wrestling, Eddie's doing these promos, even though he says, "Oh, I hate doing these promos, bro. Don't even cheer for me, bro. I just want to do these promos. I just want to say and get this out there because I love each and every one of you motherfuckers," those kind of things. That's my Eddie Kingston. But there's something about the Eddie Kingston character where the wrestling, the interviews, everything is so genuine and it's tied to his character. And there's this story of like him always thinking that he's not good enough, right? That's the Eddie Kingston story. Is like he's Rocky. He's Rocky, and he's going in there with like these legends,
Yeah.
the Samoa Joe in there.
Well, he really doesn't. The thing is that he really doesn't. He struggles with massive depression issues, and this is really him. He doesn't believe he should be popular like this. He
Yeah,
doesn't believe that he should be. He couldn't believe they put the Ring of Honor title on him. And it, like I mean, Tony Schiavone, I guess, like when COVID was still going on, went to Eddie and said, "You're going to be AEW champion one day." And he just would look at him, and if you notice, Kingston gets aggravated when Schiavone's around. They kind of go back and forth with each other, but they have a good relationship from what I hear. But it's more because Tony tells Eddie he's how great he is, and Eddie just doesn't want to hear it.
yeah,
It messes with what's going on in his head. That's something he struggles with. You could see it with Danielson, where he just almost wanted to crawl under the table. Where Brian Danielson's out here calling him this great guy and this fantastic wrestler, and look what you've done just in 3 weeks back, and all this stuff. And it's just you could tell Eddie doesn't know where to cry, to hide, or
yeah,
what.
yeah.
And I think people relate to that struggle he's having, and it's real. That's one big part of it.
I
Um, but Larry, I didn't get your answer on this, but uh, the 5-star match thing. Do you think there's anything to do with that that's real, that isn't just jealousy because some people can't have those matches, or is this a thing that
man,
is there a legitimate gripe with this?
man, when Dax Harwood is the cooler head in the room, you kind of like, you kind of gotta like, Arturo knows how I feel about Dax, but like it's all opinion here, right? It's opinion. The 5-star match is an opinion. Um,
Yeah,
when when Matt Hardy goes and says, "But I gotta look at me because I think about the draw and all that stuff," I'm like, that's complete bullshit. Everybody
I
reads
I
these reviews. Everybody does all
I
that, and it just comes off as like, oh, but we tell stories. Oh, but I care. I don't care about the story. I don't care about the match. I care about how many people came to the building. And I'm like, AEW has outdrew TNA with just All In, with just All In and Revolution. That's more people that's watched AEW live than TNA over the last like 5 years. So I'm just like, it's honestly, I love stories in pro wrestling. A story can make a match into something bigger than it is. Like, but
yeah.
obviously, what happens in the match is more important. Hulk Hogan versus The
um
Rock. I bring this up
I
because
gotta say, the one thing that aggravates me is the people making these. If you notice, the people that are saying this the most and complaining about the spots and the flips and the weird stuff, or that's what they see it. It's Matt Hardy, it's Stevie Richards, it's Bubba Dudley, like guys
the,
who made
the
their career off of trying to
Plunder,
say
big
that
spots,
spots and
Plunder.
flips and no psychology, no story. Who
death
cares who's
match.
drawing?
I'm gonna hand it to ISIS a bit, but not them, right? So one of my big complaints, right, and is that there is value in saying that a lot of these matches get into like these meaningless spot fests, and like there are, I nothing frustrates me more than when you do spots like do all these finishers and don't sell the damage, right? First part is you don't sell the damage. The other part is you do these like strike exchanges that like make no sense in a wrestling context a lot. I call that the Ishii spot, right? And Ishii does it well, but like some people like they start doing these chops, and like I'm like, dude, just you're supposed to be trying to win this fight. It takes me out of that. Like, so my point
Yes,
is
it's
like
been
there is,
overdone. Yeah.
I think that a lot of like the choreograph criticism is bad, but it's grounded in reality, because a lot of these matches, like you can have all these like crazy gyrations and spots that you do, but you have to tell me a story, right?
Yes.
You have to build this stuff. You have to kind of
Let
like
me think that you're
sell the
trying to
damage.
win.
Well, not even that. Like think about the blood and guts, right? Think about how both those matches sold the damage progressively, right? And
Yeah,
things happened and people sold it. Remember, like Darby getting thrown off, like, and just like people like were done with a match, and you have to kind of like the great matches, right? When you're watching them, like think about that speedball, like Kyle Riley, like Kyle Fletcher has been really good. This and the Dustin match, or like another match, like where like they sell this progressive damage and it makes sense, and like Fletcher loses that match in a way because he's hurrying because he's trying to beat the bell, and so like he does this rushed move and speedball counters it and gets bit, right? But there's a whole kind of like they're thinking about the time and place. They're thinking about how the match was progressed. They're thinking about the bumps they took. Like if you nothing gets me out of a match more as you start doing like these like silly tribute exchanges that like make no sense in the context and you don't sell them, right? Like you took like
I love.
I call it you know what's really bad, what I really hate, and I've gotten like I'm so done with it. You know what I mean when I say a Heyman special?
Yeah,
Which
everybody
is
runs
the
in.
WWE
Everybody stands there. Then the
WWE.
dive.
No, I'm talking
Oh,
about the Heyman special is the
new
WWE
Heyman
main
special.
event style. The Heyman special is the one where they're basically just a match where they all just do finishers, like the matches they used to do for like
Oh,
Brock.
okay.
Because he
I
kicked
was
ass.
thinking about like the.
Because like
I was thinking about the
it's like
classic
if you
ECW finish. I'm sorry, man.
no, I mean the ones they do, which is the main event style for WWE, where they do these 20 finishers and they don't sell them. These are like the best example I can think of is remember the Roman Brock matches, not the ones they had in the cages where like Brock would hit him with like 5 F5s, right? It's like, dude, it's like sell the fucking move, right? And that style where they're not selling what they're doing is just really bad. Like because like it's all high spots, right? It's all high spots, no story, right? And so again, I'm handing it to Tyson and saying like, if your match is just high spots with no story and no progression, then yes, that is bad, right? But the thing is, the people who are the most guilty of it are WWE. It's a WWE main event style.
That is kind of a funny criticism because they complain about AEW finish spamming all the time, but it's like if the matches that actually where that happen in WWE.
It's the WWE main event style. It's the Roman style.
Yeah,
They
it's
just
like
did it
when they
with.
have a big. When it's
They
one
just
of the
did it with
big
LA
four
Knight and
pinnacle
Jay
main
Uso.
events.
I think it's pretty funny because it doesn't. They cut up the match, right? Because they cut up the match for the video so that they could show it on video. So these guys hit these moves, and they show it like in the build-up video, hype video, whatever. And that's
right. It's
how
all
the
high
rest.
spots because they want to get the moments. They want to get the moments on video, and like and I think like it's part of the problem. And I've said this also for them. The problem for WWE is they don't have workers. They don't have the mechanics. They don't have the guys.
Yes.
They don't have the speedball Mike Bailey's, right? And I was explaining that like the superpower from Mike Bailey is Mike Bailey's a guy you can put in with anybody and he's going to make that person look good, right? And they're going to work to his spots and it's going to look good. It's going to look creative. And he's better when you put him with like better workers. And WWE doesn't have these people that you can put in these matches and carry some of these bums to like good matches. So the way they solve that is by doing just high spots, right?
You know what's funny about that Arturo though? In AAA, they're just doing the matches they've been doing over the last like 10 years without really that direction to change the style yet. Like Undertaker's like letting them do the matches but giving them like these are the things that you're gonna supposed to hit. And
yeah,
for
it's
now,
Undertaker and the guy who used to like the Mike Tenay's project, I forget his name.
JB, Jeremy Borash.
Borash, yeah.
It's interesting to see that because like he's sort of running it because he's coming from the school of Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson, and he's sort of running it like how WWE would be ran, but just like sort of letting the guys do their own thing.
The thing is that they have the workers, like they have kind of like Vince used to have. They have the guys in the middle of the lower card, the middle of the card that can actually like carry these matches. And I think the other part is that like I mean the bar in AAA was in hell because essentially like Undertaker and Borash are replacing Conan, and I have farts that could book better than Conan. Like sorry, but like I'm not going to apologize to Conan. Fuck that, no. But I've had to watch AAA pay-per-view shows, so I do not need to apologize. Booked by Conan, so I do not need to apologize to Conan. I refuse.
You don't have to, man.
My eyes have bled enough.
One thing that gets me is that I don't see enough the veterans criticizing because you remember the All Out pay-per-view where Darby wrestled Punk in his first match back
Yeah.
from like his WWE days. You also had um, uh, Ruby Soho. She debuted. Then you also had Adam Cole's surprise debut at the end, and then Danielson debuts. And I remember people were like, is AEW relying on these big moments too much? Well, then now you get to this thing where WWE's entire thing is you show up just hoping for the big debut, big moment. They book toward it. They book toward the they all the. I remember watching Solo and Cody's match last year. I don't watch a lot of WWE shows, but I like both these guys. I'll watch them, and the match was just absolute crap until it gets to the run-ins. Like it was basically okay, go out there and stall for 10, 15 minutes until we can until we can start doing the run-ins and we can get Roman in. And it's to me, it's like, to me, that's much more short-sighted than than the average Dynamite or Collision match. And I'll say this, Arturo, I agree with you completely. I think I think the Ishii spot was great when it's Ishii, but when everybody else is copying it, it doesn't work. When you can get something more over with, when you can go in the corner and just punch somebody in the head or do a lock or a headlock, it's better than if you can do the same thing with a springboard 350 into the ring, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me though, it's like the same. That's a problem on a smaller scale. WWE's problem with the moment booking is on a bigger scale, because at some point, who else is going to be your big moment? Who are they going to
Yeah.
sign? Are they just waiting for like Kenny Omega's deal to break up or come to an end, and they're just going to snag somebody? Because that's they got lucky with Cody. I mean, Cody
Yeah.
should have never left AEW. He was a founder.
I mean, I can get into my theory why he left. I think some of that. I think
I know
ultimate.
exactly why he left. I can't say why.
I mean, I'm gonna say things and like
And it's one of the reasons why I think he'll be back.
I think ultimately, um, the promotion was not big enough for both Cody and TK. And what I mean by that is, I think TK wanted to be the person in charge of creating and control, and I think Cody wanted.
That's not it. I
I
can
mean, I
tell you
thought
for a fact it was not something quite like that. It was
Well,
basically they both got putting in an area where they had to both make a certain decision, and it was very amicable. The two will not discuss why it happened. I know the reason why it happened because I I was fortunate to know somebody who knew the circumstances. And the reason why I'm talking about this is like I'm trying to think of what are they going to do after Cody, because
do
you
you
can
guys?
already tell they're looking for that.
Yeah.
And
Because
WWE's had massive problems going to that next baby face,
the
because when
problem for
that baby face goes someplace else, or he gets
okay, the,
pissed.
the problem for them and the reason why the having a budget like they do and having a guy like TK and we talked about this before and I mentioned this a little bit, which is the Chads, the cons are basically very cash rich. They're paying out for the Jaguars remodel out of pocket, right?
Yeah.
That's like 50% of it. They pay for the Fulham Stadium out of pocket. They don't. They're gonna be able to pay whatever they want for the guys that they want, right? And really, they're coming at it from the point of view of like paying them like you pay in NFL, where you pay like 50% of the money that's coming into the payroll. It's also tax shelter. There's a lot of things that mean that like you're not going to be able to compete on salary if TK wants to keep someone. And the problem is, like I say, so essentially they have to go out and raid, but who are they raiding?
Yeah.
Unless they decide to push someone that they historically have. As I said, Obafemi.
Wait, so do you guys? So the card for Saturday night's main event, right? So the whole thing about it, John Cena said, "My match is first. My retirement match is first. All the other things should be about the next guys up, right? This is the whole thing. Even though now they've been scrambling. Oh no, John Cena's not going to be the first match. That's been the whole thing.
Yeah, essentially,
Traditionally on Saturday night's main event, the main event goes off first because that's when
yeah.
everybody's still up.
Yeah,
but nobody
I
cares.
remember.
It's not actually on TV this time.
Okay.
Because
I will
that
say
match is with Gunther, right? This is his final match. Is the match with Gunther, and like Gunther being the guy to retire him, it's not really. I mean, Gunther's 38. I guess now in Wrestling 38, it's a young guy. So it's kind of just it'll probably be a good match. I mean, I think John Cena, and I know Gunther has it in him to get something out of Cena. Um, yes, I'm doing a Saturday Night's main event sort of preview here because we're talking about the youth of the nation, the youth of the WWE, and like they're doing a WWE versus NXT card. So Cody Rhodes is fighting Obafemi, right? That's one of the matches. I don't know how that's gonna go. I think they're probably gonna have a non-finish because they're doing something with Ricky Starks. The other match they're doing is interesting to me. It's Dragon Lee and AJ Styles versus Javon Evans and TNA wrestler Leon Slater. These two guys are 21. They're hip, they're black, they're young.
They're gonna eat the
They
pin.
can go, but they're not gonna get pushed under this regime.
They're gonna get pinned.
They're gonna get pinned. And of course,
If
the
I
last
was
match
if I
is
was
Bailey versus Sol Ruka. Sol Ruka does that one move. That's why she's over. The future of WWE lies with the women. My opinion.
it's honestly that division okay. So you're getting it like they don't know how to agent the women. They really don't know how to agent the women. They have talent, but it's always the same fucking match. And they don't have anybody who can base, so it's really kind of
It's it's
if
so
I was
odd. They
booked
got they
if I
got
was
Rhea Ripley over to that point, but she was over without wrestling matches. And
yeah,
now she's
like they
wrestling
she was
matches
over
and they're
because
not
she was
pushing
with, she was
her as the face of the
with
division. It's
The
so
same
fucking
thing they
weird.
did with Becky Lynch, which she even talks about, where they, which I can off air, I can talk about this some more, but
Oh
where
yeah,
she was
we'll
talking about
definitely
how
talk
she
some
main
stuff.
events WrestleMania. She gets despite their best efforts, she gets over as the man character because she's basically cutting honest, kick-ass promos, and nobody else is doing that. And then she gets over, and what do? They shove her in a feud with,
Baron Corbin.
the
They
Evans
scared
and
her.
her one of her 50th pushes she got.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
God,
don't
it's
I don't trust them to be able to push the women's division how they should be pushed because these women they're extremely popular with the fan
I mean,
base.
they should be pushing Stephanie McCurr as like the biggest thing they have. I mean,
Yeah.
I think she's a superstar. I think they'd be an idiot not to push her to the mountain, but I mean, they just don't seem to be willing to. People criticize AEW rightly for not showcasing women as much as they should, but they've kind of gotten over that. I mean, you had Red Velvet and Mercedes,
I
main eventing a Dynamite, and then Red Velvet. I just want to say something. I think it's incredible talent. Um,
Incredible.
her, Leela Hirsch, and Chris Statlander were got together with one of the producers at the time there, BJ Whitmer. This is before he got canned, and basically went to him. And Whitmer was working with a lot of the main event matches, a lot of matches up and down the card. And they said, "Hey, we want to get better. We got to do this. What do we need to do?" So they got with Whitmer and they put in a lot of work. They earned a lot of trust. Britt Baker gets involved, and when you remember that first little run the division really had when Jamie Hayter was in there, you had Tony Storm, and then they kind of had the WWE women kind of got together. They were getting a lot of heat. Tony was really coming into her own on matches. This is before the timeless character. Um, it was that core group of like Velvet, Statlander, Hirsch with Whitmer kind of producing it that really got him to that spot, and they've kind of really exploded from there. And I just don't see anybody in WWE doing the same thing for the women there.
I
I
think
don't
I
even
think and
think
I think I
Finlay is being the agent for the women's matches anymore. I don't think he's been
no.
the agent for them for like years. Because if we compare because Finlay was agenting during the
Well, Sarah
whole
Stock was there in NXT, but she
yeah.
just I don't think her I don't think she was I don't think she was what is advertised,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah. It's
I
it's
think
I mean,
I think
she's kind of become a Twitter personality now, but
I think
oh yeah.
I think one thing to keep it one thing, and people are gonna hate me saying this, but like women's wrestling did not have in the US did not have the depth to carry the love. People wanted these girls on TV, and these girls were not ready to be on TV in 2019.
They were not.
No.
There was not the level of talent to sustain the I wanted. And people
That's
were
why
like, "Oh,
Kenny went
Shimmer."
with
Yeah,
Joshi's
and
at the beginning.
people are like, "Yeah, I mean, we can get into
I think
like
the big four in NXT were an exception, but it just showed that you could main event.
I think
They were only enough to. There was only the four of them.
I'm going to push back on that and say that like Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks, was really fucking good, and she was carrying her and Asuka were carrying all these like. And again, it's not that
I
Bailey's
mean,
bad.
you
I
can
think
make a
Bailey.
case for that.
I mean, like because like
I will
she
say
left.
this, and I'm glad it stuck. And I said when I watched Takeover, where Bailey and Mercedes with Sasha Banks at the time of Mercedes, and I said Mercedes is the best psychological wrestling heel I've seen in 15, 20 years.
I
Absolutely.
no one is as, and this is like thing that's frustrating me in the Hall of Fame discussion is no one is as good as Sasha at like making her opponent look great. She is an all-timer. She's had good matches with Carmella. She'll go into like anywhere and like just have like a different cool match with anybody. That Riho match, that Kerr match, just these matches are just insane because she just does all this stuff that's so great.
Yeah, she
And
helped
like
Kerr get a big
but
WWE paid.
what my point is like think about the division in the WWE before or like after she left, right? And think about like the AEW division after she got there. But my point was like it took a while, as you said, like for the girls to build up to the point where now like they're the best part of the show. To me, they're like the best, some of the best parts of the show, or
Oh
some of the
yeah,
most
I mean,
consistent part of the show. So like,
personality wise, and they work so well together, and they work so hard.
Yeah.
They're definitely a highlight. I think for a I mean, I think the best hottest star in wrestling for a good period was Tony Storm,
oh yeah, she was the
and
best.
I think
She
that in the
is.
centerpiece of it's Mercedes. And it's funny because I had people with WWE were telling me that she had a CM Punk kind of attitude. She was hard to work with, blah blah blah. And I had other people talking to me that knew her and said, "Look, this is not the case." They said everybody understands what happens in the locker room there, especially with the women. If she gets in AEW and they give her the right treatment, it's not going to be the case at all. And then you see what she's doing with this title run.
She lost
You
clean
know,
to
where
Red Velvet, man. She lost clean
I
to
mean,
her.
and they built it. And the thing is she built it up and made it something. And she made, Velvet, who's always been kind of close to making the star level, but gotten hurt. And then she helps her get over that finish line. And it's like, okay, this is huge. And now you got this storyline like what's happening with Mercedes because she gets the 13 titles. It's like bad luck. She can't get the 14th. And then she loses one. What's happening now? And you can just see it in the way how she sells it in the ring after the match is incredible. And
Yeah.
they're really that women's division in AEW right now is very special. And I don't
I
think
mean,
of any.
I think she helped make Harley, and I love Harley. I
Oh,
think she's helped.
absolutely. That
Yeah,
was
people
what
like
got her over was that feud with Harley. And she
like
knew how to wrestle a match I mean, Harley's only had like 80, 90 professional wrestling matches. She's only
Yeah.
done this for 3 years.
I
She
would
should not be doing this.
I would take Harley over like basically anybody, like
That
90% of the WWE
because
roster. So she
she's
she
trained
just
by
gets it.
Tyler Breeze and Sean
Yeah.
Spears. And I don't know what kind of magic they're doing, but that's like Heart
Well, I mean,
Dungeon style. And
I think the thing with
she's
her,
amazing for
the
her
thing with
level.
her, what I point out to her, right? When I point out to her, and the difference between Harley and the PC trainees is that when you're watching a match and somebody misses something, right? You can immediately tell that the PC trainees are counting in their head and get lost. And Harley is good enough that when something like that happens, she goes with the flow. It's that lucha instinct. She goes with the flow.
Yeah.
She goes to the next. She doesn't stop. The
Well,
match.
she's a vaudeville trained actress and performer where
Yeah.
I
you
think.
got to think on your feet.
I think
That's where
that.
the puppet gimmick came from, and some of these other things she do, and why she can play piano,
And talk
which is
Chinese.
insane.
The other thing I was going to say is one way you can kind of figure out if like one way to measure if somebody like the talent level or the training level or work level of these like female wrestlers is how hard are the Joshi punching them, right? No, I seriously like, because
It's a
what
good
happens.
point. I know what you're
No,
talking
no,
about. Yeah,
because
go
what
ahead,
happens is
explain it.
that the Joshi workers are trained, like the way they're working, right? So that if you're working with a bad worker in Japan, what happens is they slow down. They automatically do this. If they don't think you can work at the rate, they basically slow down, work at a quarter rate, like let's say like quarter speed,
Yes.
and don't lay it in. And I think like the thing I noticed like in that tag match is like Mina laid it in so fucking hard that she got her hard way. And they just kept waiting, just worked through it to the end of the match, and Harley just worked through it. And she was bleeding from the mouth at the end of the match. She was like completely bloody lip because like Mina was punching her so fucking hard. Because again, Mina, who again, like this is baked into the way the Joshis are trained.
Yes.
Mina respect Harley enough to just work full speed and punch full speed on her at the end of the match. And that really is the ultimate. Like we watch Io Sky and watch how she works against different workers in WWE, and you can immediately tell by the speed and how hard she's laying it in whether she thinks the person she's working with is kind of bad, or whether she respects them and thinks they're a good worker, right? And
I had
that
to really. It's funny you mentioned EO because I remember watching her against. I can't remember. It was some of the supposed up on red card there, and I'm like, man, she just does not look the way she did in Stardom. But then she gets in there with the Kerr, and
she works full
it's
speed.
like the lights come on, and it's
Well, I mean,
like, oh, and that's like, wait, this is how she's trained to do it.
you got to remember what happens with the Joshi is like when you're like if you're looking at TJPW or like Stardom, you're gonna get like the low level trainees, the idols that are coming in, who and initially like think about somebody like Maki Ito when she first came in, who like she was not good, right? And I like actually like I'll mention Maki Ito is really like if you haven't seen her, she's really good now. She's very very good.
Yeah.
But when you're
I
like
think she'd
working,
be a superstar in the US. But
yeah, I think they should bring her back over because she's like 10 times better than she was. But like we're getting off the point. The point is when they're doing the training, because you have to work these tours, because you have to work with like people who are like not at very different skill levels. It's ingrained to these the Joshi workers at the top level. They know that if they're working with a trainee, they slow down, right? So they slow down and simplify the matches. They do it by instinct, right? So that's why I said like immediately when you see Kairi or you see Asuka or you see Io or like you see Riho not laying it in, working slow, that means they don't respect it. Like if you go watch that Riho Monet match, and Riho's laying it in. I've never seen Riho lay shit in like that in her life. She's like she's going full speed like she's Emmy. It was great.
I like it. I love how these idiots just completely. I mean, it's sad how they've treated her online. It's been bullying. It's terrible. But then you watch her actually wrestle, and it's like, man, this girl's gonna hurt you if she
Yeah.
I
wants.
mean, I think
She
I used
drives
to,
those knees into
I,
you when she does the
I used to,
Meteora. I love it.
but think
That's a killer finisher. I love that
before I
double knee
started
finisher.
watching more modern Joshi and got sharp to that, I used to think the same thing about her. She didn't lay shit in, but then I saw her working with people who were competent, and I saw her. Oh, that's what's going on, and that's something I mean. Like once you see it, like I'm telling you, like once you see it, you'll understand. Oh, Io or Riho thinks this person is terrible. It's like or like they can't work with her safely, so they don't want to hurt them. They basically the first thing is they don't want to hurt this person. So like if they're punching you like full speed like Mino is doing to Harley, this like it means yes, I think I can work safely at any speed with this person. Let me lay this shit in, right?
So if they were wrestling Lacey Evans, they would probably just go take a nap in the corner.
Yeah. Who was it? Like I forget who is that hurt Kyrie. God, was it?
No, it was Charlotte that power bombed her.
Charlotte.
It was Charlotte.
And concussed her. Like, something like even God, it's again the problem. The biggest problem, and I think this is they have to overcome is, and I remember with Ruby when she came into AEW, is she had the PC training where she lost the way to work with a lot of styles and a lot of people, and now you see these like the girls in AEW like all have this they can work any style, right? It's because again they've gotten to work with all these people who brought in, and it's made them way better. And again, like I think like and Larry's talked about this, like they should also start bringing in more luchadoras.
Persephone is gonna be big in the US.
Yeah,
she's 23. She's American. She's
I mean,
from El Paso. She's gonna be big in the U.S. Whoever signs Persephone, that's gonna be the next big star in America.
Could
Like,
be. I think you'll see some of. I think you'll see more of that. But I think right now, with as many people as they have healthy in the women's division, I think Tony's just trying to give him as full blast as he can.
I mean,
Because Statlander would have been champion 2 years ago. I know they planned to put the belt on her, and she blew her knee out again. They've Hater's been hurt. And they finally get a lot of these people back. They still got others on the shelf.
I mean,
I
they
mean,
were
Britt Baker, obviously, but
they were gonna bring Suri in, and Suri got hurt, and that's kind of like it's kind of like annoying to me because God, she ruled, and she would
oh
have been
yeah.
man,
perfect to bring in, and like
So
I
I'm gonna
think
the best Filipino wrestler in the world. My favorite, Joshi. One of my favorites. Not just because she's Filipino, but Siri is amazing. Um, you know,
her match with who was her match with a couple years ago that was like
Julia.
there's
Sierra. It
Julia,
wasn't Julia.
there's
It was her. It
Mayu,
was
there's
who was
there's
that?
this match with Chihiro Hashimoto, where they did like a knockout match that was pretty
Yes, that
insane.
was the. It was almost like that. It was almost like a Regal Benoit Fit Finley match
Yeah,
that they
yeah,
did, where it was almost a shoot
it's probably
style.
Chihiro Hashimoto, who I think
Yeah,
I think
would be someone
that
that
was
you will
probably one of
love,
my
BJ.
favorite matches of the last 5 years.
if she that's, yeah, I've seen that one. I think that one of the things that like we need to get to, which is I know that AEW is doing it for like a lot of like the older Japanese, where like you can bring some of the older talent in. Let's start doing that with the Yoshi too. Like they did this with Mina. Get some of these girls like that are like. I mean, like
They're gonna
Japan has
age
a
out.
shorter window. Yeah, it's gonna age out. Like bring them in. Like bring a lot of these women in because they can help you get to even to the next level, right? And they'll get over like the window in the U.S. is broader, particularly in
I
AEW.
mean,
Yeah,
look at
I
Asuka.
really got to give it to Tony. And basically didn't want him to wrestle at all, and he's been a huge part of the company. I mean, Ishii is still based in Japan, but when he comes, he's a bigger star in AEW and treated like one than he is in any of the companies there.
That's how it's
I mean,
been for his whole run. He was
I
treated
mean,
big in ROH and Rev Pro. Just
Yeah,
I wanted to push. I wanted them to push Shibata with the phone gimmick as a babyface, and I would have put a belt on him at one point because I think that like he was that good. He was that over and that
oh
good.
yeah.
And it's
I
like
I
mean,
think he could still get there. I could
the
definitely
women love
see
him.
if if they did a split. Well, I think he helps out a lot backstage. He was the guy. He was running the New Japan dojo
I mean,
in
look at the
L.A.
guys they brought in. Look at Kevin Knight.
Oh
He
yeah.
was central to Kevin Knight's training in the LA dojo. We're talking about the LA dojo guys. I think the rumor is their contracts are up in I think in May or in March. And like if they come in, there's always that familiarity and I I honestly I love Shibata. He's one of my favorite guys of all time. That the story about him and Brian coming back after 5 years of being retired and then just being excellent pro wrestlers. It's it's one of those stories in pro wrestling that you think about like, wow, this guy was could have died after his match and here he is now wrestling on American TV weekly
I
and
know. I
it's
watched
amazing.
that match live, and I remember him hitting, and I remember them carrying him out of the ring. If people don't know what we're talking about, he headbutted Okada at the end of one of the matches during. It was probably was as good as the Omega match that he had a couple months prior, and then he suffered a massive hematoma in the front of his skull. They had to remove the front of his skull to save his life. They didn't think he was going to make it. Then he was forced into retirement, and then he managed to get healthy enough that he was able to get in a little bit more physically involved. They had some special mat matches, and he's finally got healthy enough where he's able to wrestle full time. And
Yeah.
it also
I
led
mean,
to one of my all-time favorite, and I love Ghetto, even though he's probably doesn't have much to work with, but just I mean you know what I'm talking about. It was when Kenna turned went Bullet Club,
Oh yeah,
They
I
wipe
love
out the
that.
baby faces, and then Shibata, who hasn't wrestled in 5 years, comes running out with the
Hits him with
kendo
a drop
stick.
kick, man. I
That
I
drop
think
kick, that crowd, I have never heard a Japanese crowd. And
I think
then they beat up Shibata, which is probably the most heel heat I ever heard.
I
And then
wish
Shibata
AEW
in the
would have ran
post
that match.
conference,
I
what's
wish
that?
AEW would have ran that match. I mean, they
Oh
can
my
now,
god.
but imagine the
They
heat if they did that. If they would have
oh
done
my
that,
g- oh my
I
god.
I think that like Shibata is actually like he's really interesting because I'm convinced he would have been IWGP champion. I'm pretty sure.
Oh
absolutely.
yeah.
And he's kind of like, if you think about it, like as much shit as I can give New Japan, some of it is, some of the guys that I think should have been on top for them are kind of like not available for them, right?
Yeah.
Who's the other guy that the one that there was another guy that died? I forget what his name was.
Kitamura.
Oh, Kitamura, yes,
Yeah.
the Okan's class. So they had some guys that for different reasons weren't available. But I mean, like, Shibata is still like, you still look at him and you go like, fuck, right?
Yeah,
Well, he was in that. He basically got the same position as Omega was, where he was getting the big because he went to Noah. He was considered the outsider,
yeah,
and then he comes back and he finally got accepted and he's in the main event and he wrestles Okada and he barely loses. And it was supposed to set him up to be the next big challenger along with Omega, and it was going to be those guys and that injury just changed the whole course of everything for New Japan. And I mean, if you look at the end, like Kota Ibushi's shoulder injury, I mean, he was set to be their big baby face world champion for a while. Um, you look at COVID, just they've just had such a bad run of luck.
it's
I absolutely
probably
love that the Tokyo Dome now is gonna have 50,000 people screaming, crying for Tanahashi. I absolutely love that. Um,
No, absolutely.
it's a legit 50K. We looking
yeah,
back
legit
at, like, it's crazy. I love New Japan, especially like 2010s. New Japan is the golden era of pro wrestling for me.
Oh yeah,
Excellent
I believe you. I'm
matches,
with you on that.
great characters, cool shirts. I think that's the thing that's missing also in pro wrestling nowadays is cool shirts, because like that takeover shirt that Shibata would wear with that puppet thing. That's awesome. Okada didn't have cool shirts. That's kind of
Yeah.
been the Okada thing. But like
I mean,
when I
there
think
was
of,
the Bullet Club, obviously, but also the Los Ignobles de Japan was an
yeah,
amazing shirt. Like they just
yeah,
had this stylite. I mean, you go to Hot Topic and it's like, it's like, how's WWE going to compete with these shirts? You
yeah,
know,
and I
but
absolutely, because I don't know when's the next time I'm going to record. I'm looking forward to 1-4. I'm gonna be crying. I'm gonna be watching it live. I know I'm gonna be crying because Tanahashi's been one of the best wrestlers I've ever had the
yeah,
pleasure of watching. I watched two matches live. I watched when he wrestled for TNA and he came over here, and I was the only one marking out for him in Anaheim. And then I watched him versus Mr. Ass. Those are the two Tanahashi matches I watched live.
wow,
But uh, he is, and I know we talked about John Cena. I grew up also a John Cena fan, big John Cena fan, because I also saw him work in UPW before he became anything, and seeing these two guys that I saw from those beginnings in like in the 2000s. Their careers are sort of parallel, running parallel to each other, and now we're at the end for both of them. And now I do want to say this because John Cena and Tanahashi defined generations for pro wrestling, um, and what they contributed is is amazing. John Cena basically made WWE into an empire. Like, he was part of them becoming a billion-dollar company again. And Tanahashi Nakamura, he was Tanahashi and Nakamura and Makabe. I want to put Makabe in there. Were the big reason that New Japan was able to get back to that health, going back to that Tokyo Dome. And then we have Naito and Okada, and but there's all these periods where Tanahashi would win the G1, win the IWGP title, and be our champion, and it's gonna be it's gonna be weird to have wrestling without John Cena, without Tanahashi in it. And on this show, I know it's a little show, but like I want to say thank you to both of them because they provided me with like 2 decades worth of memories of great matches. And when I think of Tanahashi, I think of the greatest babyface of all time, the high fly flow, some of the greatest matches of all time, probably the best babyface ever. And John Cena, I absolutely been a mark for him because he reminded me of Sting as a kid, and to see where he's gone as a wrestler. I know there's been periods where he's not been so great, but I absolutely loved his matches with Umaga. I love the feud with Kevin Owens. I love the feud with AJ Styles. AJ Styles is the link between John Cena and Tanahashi, and it's just
Yeah.
it's just amazing to me. Like these guys have this parallel career. John Cena shouted it out so many times on his Instagram, and I think that part's cool too.
I
Um,
will say, I think Tanahashi, I mean, this was a guy who saved a company and maybe an industry in
yeah,
Japan. I mean, and he may be the greatest. It, it's it's crazy to think that 10 years ago he was getting old and tired and probably at the end of his thing, and now he's still here and he's just now retiring. But it you know, I mean, I think there's definitely a case to say he's the greatest main event wrestler of all time. He's
yeah,
probably the most important modern wrestler, contemporary wrestler in Japanese in Japan. And I think you could also say he's the greatest baby face of all time.
yeah.
He, you
It's
know, he
insane.
he's just he's just an incredible performer. And what amazed me about him was that you could tell he was a big fan of Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko by a lot of the moves and the styles he adopted. And he was kind of the link between that junior heavyweight, that junior not that New Japan light heavyweight, and that WCW cruiserweight style being meshed with the heavyweights
Yeah,
in Japan and in main events anywhere. And you put that with the charisma and everything else, and that was kind of the magic formula for pro wrestling forward. And that's kind of how it still is. And
he did have a
and
match with Eddie Guerrero. Uh,
yeah, did he?
it's Yeah, he had it when Eddie was passing through when he got fired from WWE. But
Okay,
it's
I gotta
it,
go find that.
it's a little match. It's like he's still in young boy mode. But yeah, Tanahashi, amazing wrestler. If and I know like this has been going on long, but like to sell 50K on your last match, I think Muda his show did like 36,
Yeah,
but to go 50K legit sellout. This is legit sellout too, ladies and gentlemen. Like
This is, I mean,
this isn't a work. Like every time every time they open new areas, they sell out. This is like going to be probably the biggest card for New Japan since like 2020
the
when they
80s.
were on
No,
their
I would say legitimately, we can make an argument it's the biggest card since the 80s in terms of like draw.
yeah
Because I mean, if we're talking about like shoot numbers, then yeah, I mean, like we're gonna like have to get like the UFI versus New Japan or like the Inoki. I mean, like there's a Mudo card maybe, but like then we'd have to like argue about which ones are legit
yeah.
and which
the
are like
top one is the Muto Takada matches, which amazing also. I think that was legit the biggest drawing card for them.
I think maybe a
some of those.
couple years with Okada, like the Omega Jericho show that had Okada Naito at the top. I think I think it got close, but they had to paper it at the end. It wasn't a legit 55. I think it got to 45 or 50.
Yeah,
I mean,
But
like
that's the closest since the 80s.
the Inoki final is for example listed at 70,000, but that building is not built 70,000, right?
super
Like
no
I'm
literally,
sure
vacancy.
like
Inoki's ego helped fill that.
I'm not saying that probably was shoot like 50,000 too. I mean, like
Oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
it is a I've seen pictures. It is a shoot sellout, but
Yeah,
like you can't argue that it isn't a work number, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And
So how about to close out? I want to give you guys what's your all-time favorite Tanahashi moment or match?
that
And
Huh.
Larry, since this is your deal, I think you should go first. So
okay.
none of us
So
can steal yours.
my favorite Tanahashi moment was uh when he beat Okada in the main event where everybody thought that Okada was gonna win, and then he stands up on the ropes and he says, "You're not ready," and like Okada's crying, and he's just there like smiling, doing his Kamen Rider Kuga pose, and he's just like mockingly playing his guitar and doing the Aishimas thing, and like it's just you see Okada crying, crumpling in Ghetto's arms, and I love that. But my favorite match of his, I gotta give it to King of Pro Wrestling Tanahashi versus Minoru Suzuki. There's so the history on that is Tanahashi famously said at the end of when Nakamura won the IWG top GP title because Tanahashi had to basically vacate it. Strong style, I'm gonna get rid of strong style, right? Strong style is a curse. So you take that into consideration, and Minoru Suzuki comes from Inoki, one of the original Inoki trainees uh, in the 80s. He's a Inoki trained, and he's strong style, submissions, strong strikes, sort of shoot style, and they have this match, and it's not the Minoru you know now. It's the Minoru from 13 years ago, 2012, and there's just this way where I think this is when Tanahashi started perfecting that slap that he does, and him and Minoru do like this whole thing, and it's incredible, and that's something I'd watch. There's also the my favorite other matches like the G1 of Shibata versus Tanahashi, where Tanahashi finally gives Shibata the respect of you're here and I accept you. And this will be funny, but one of my absolutely because Nakamura is my guy. One of my guys. Like if you follow pro wrestling, Nakamura Tanahashi is sort of like the Randy Orton, John Cena of New Japan,
Flair
or
Steamboat, Flair
Flair
Dusty,
Steamboat. Yeah,
Tanahashi Steamboat, or Tanahashi Nakamura.
Tanahashi Nakamura, the Wrestle Kingdom for the IWGP Intercontinental title. It it's an amazing match. I remember watching it live and I was just floored by it because you have the amazing entrances, right? He comes out with the I forget who's the guitar player that plays Tanahashi out, but
Oh, it
then
was Marty
Nakamura,
Friedman from Megadeth.
yeah, Freddie Freeman, and then you get like Nakamura, he comes out with the strippers, the pole dancers, and he has like this one pole
The
dancer on
two
his
hardest
shoulders.
entrances in the pro wrestling history.
Like
I mean,
Nakamura is
well,
like
I
doing
mean,
his
like,
whole dance,
yeah.
you know, like he's doing the whole thing, doing this stuff. There's no camera here, but my audience, I'm doing the Nakamura stuff, and like those two define New Japan for me in the 2000s and the 2010s because I was one of the few lucky guys who didn't stop watching New Japan in the 2010s. So my thing of going into 2000s is I grew up with these guys. I said fuck you Brock Lesnar for screwing over not only Nakamura but also Tanahashi because Brock was supposed to drop the belt to Tanahashi, and it's just those are the three matches for me: Minoru Suzuki, 2012 King of Pro Wrestling, the G1. Let me look up that exact date so people can find that.
So I don't know
Yeah,
the.
the quarterfinals of the G1 for the G1 23. Uh,
Okay.
No, and then there's also the G1 and the G124. There's also the and then Wrestle Kingdom, Tanahashi, Nakamura. You could find that available on YouTube, provided for free, or you're on Daily Motion. They actually have the Mauro Ronaldo call of that, which I also recommend. It's Mauro and Josh. They call it. They give a lot of like backstory to it. That you don't get for a lot of things, and I think backstory is important. I know we're talking about this, but to tie it back to what your question was about story and pro wrestling, I think when you know the history of why this match is happening, if you look back and you watch some promos about why this match meant something, and because like they voted for this match, this main event over Naito versus Okada, which was for the IWGP title, this shows you the importance not just of Tanahashi, of Nakamura. It shows you what that means to this audience, and those are my picks for my favorite Tanahashi match.
Awesome. What you got, Arturo?
I was thinking about the draw, which I think is the last time Okada didn't beat him. And that's a draw. Hopefully, everybody like thought about the G1 draw, 30-minute draw between the two. And I just again there's a couple matches at the end with them, and obviously they have this great rivalry with like some of the. I think they may have the most like 4.5 and over matches of any pair of two people in history. But that particular match, and I think like because it's like the last great run that Tanahashi has as like a top level guy, and it just like because he sells me on it, you know what I mean? Like it's getting me, and I know he shouldn't, but like it sells me on him winning. And I think like I mean I like some of his later stuff too, like the stuff where I was trying to remember the mock stuff also I like. I mean like any like there's is it the one where they have the one where they did in the US, which was like the farewell match between Tanahashi and Okada. I remember that match because like it just sold me on it. I was convinced he was gonna go over. And like it's just that ability to like I appreciate when somebody can work me like that, right? So those are like two great, and like and again we can talk about the Omega matches, we can talk about the Naito matches. I mean, like we can talk about like the Young Boy match. Are you like the Young Boy match with him and Scott Hall, where Scott Hall puts him over? It's another like little great little tidbit with him, where like Scott Hall's like, no, I'm putting this guy over, right? And it's very Young Boy Tanahashi. But I mean,
it's funny how Hall seemed to be, for the reputation of his friends and stuff. Hall seemed to really put a lot of guys over.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Scott Hall was never. Scott Hall was always haunted by demons. I think
Yes, I think so.
If I remember correctly, he accidentally killed a guy as a bouncer, and I think that always kind of like was something that kind of. I mean, he had his, and it was always a thing, and so, but like, he's a guy that honestly, if he had slightly less demons, he probably would have been world champion at some point. But I think the trick with Tanahashi is he's so important with so many people in so many areas, and I think this last year even. We were running joke is that he's had a better run outside of New Japan this last year.
Watch the Dino match. Watch the Dino match.
Watch him give away the high five flow to
Yuki Yoshioka.
Yuki Yoshioka.
Oh my god!
Like no, I'm not giving it to any of the Reiwas. I'm giving it to the Dragon Gate guy. But I mean, like it's been I think honestly like a really great late run. Even like some of the tag team matches he was working, like you gotta respect him where he didn't change his moveset, right? He just kept going, and it's been a real good it's everything. I mean, like nobody has been as good as long, I don't think. I'm trying to think of like somebody who like maybe Funk is the only one I can come up with that level and that breadth and that length of a career as like a high level worker, right? And yeah, I mean, like it's gonna be a very different world without him around, Yeah. I still remember like the first time, like when he comes out the first time in AEW, it's like, oh wow, it's like because like it's like, oh god, it's Tanahashi, and I think like by that time everyone kind of knew, right? And I don't know. I mean, I think that like one thing that's actually like good is I think it's good that it's Okada, and I think that it should be who kind of does that. And I mean, like, it could have been Nakamura, and I understand why it didn't happen, but I think it feels correct, right? Regardless of anything you think, I think it's important to kind of, I mean, again, I think the follow up is going to be important. I think obviously, people are like Tanahashi should win. I'm like Okada should win, as long as Okada's like giving that pin to someone that Tanahashi wants to make. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree
That's
with you on that.
I'm very much like, see, the way, again, if I was booking New Japan, the way I would do it is Okada wins, he comes out with a V4 at the end to challenge Tsuji, right? If Tsuji wins, right? And then he basically he gives the pin back to Tsuji. And hell,
It
I
should
might
be
even bring it.
Suji, but I think it's gonna be Aaron Wolf because he came back specifically because he was a big part of bringing Aaron to New Japan. So,
Interesting.
I mean, I've said that Okada basically just gives pins to his boys. Like, so,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's,
And then I think the big interview he gave recently was he should have brought Aaron Wolf to AEW instead, and that might be for heat, or that might be just because he doesn't give a crap. But oh boy, how about you, BJ? What's your favorite Tanahashi match?
I want to make sure I got the right year for this match because I don't want to screw people up. Because this was an important match to me. Okay, yeah, I got it right. It's the 2015 G1 Climax final. It was Nakamura and Tanahashi. Tanahashi wins it, of course. This got him the spot in the Wrestle Kingdom 10 main event. This would have been, I think, Nakamura's last Wrestle Kingdom. I think this is the one right before he jumped.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a year later. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
that's the one.
That to me, that was like the last of their great matches. And at the time, I see at Wrestle Kingdom 9, that was the first time I'd watched wrestling in like 10, 12 years. My brother basically browbeat me to watch the pay-per-view. He's like, man, you got to watch this. There's these guys named Tanahashi and Nakamura and Okada, and the storylines are insane. The matches are insane. There's the Bullet Club. They're like the NWO, but they can wrestle. You know, he just sells me on it, and I watch it, and I'm like, what? And I'm loving every bit of it. I'm seeing these Ring of Honor matches on a lower card, and I'm like, wait, this show's on for free every Sunday night here. I can watch this. And that got me sucked down a rabbit hole. And at the time, you could get almost every New Japan match on YouTube. And I remember my brother just sending me loads of them. And I remember just watching Nakamura versus Tanahashi. And I started learning there was a rivalry there. They were two very different characters. I remember Nakamura a little bit because of the whole Inokiism kind of deal where, he was kind of Inoki's pick and disappointed him. And then he kind of emerged as his own, mixing this whole Michael Jackson kind of Freddie Mercury heel character. And Nakamura might be the most, he's up there with Tanahashi to me. But that match was just those two at their peak. God, it was, they've had so many great matches, hard to pick. Another one I would pick, as far as the Tanahashi, and a lot of people will hate this, but it was the 2012 match where Okada just comes back from TNA and he gets the shock win for the title over Tanahashi. And the reason I picked this is because you don't expect it. And I think even at the time, I wasn't watching wrestling at the time. I had to go back and watch it. And Okada didn't even look like a fully put together guy until this match. And because, I mean, you remember, I think his excursion when TNA was so bad that Scott D'Amore, like 10 years later, walked in the locker room when TNA was in Japan and he apologized to him for it.
Yeah.
But
Okada.
Okada.
Okada. He was
Kato.
a Kato character, and he was the valet for he was like the young boy for Samoa Joe.
Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, well, that's real original, Vince Russo. Let's call the sidekick for a guy Kato.
He was basically worse. He's basically Hook, is what he was.
The greatest wrestler of all time, probably, and yeah, that's what Vince Russo does with him. That's fuck you, Vince Russo. So
I was
anyway,
gonna say retroactively, I'm mad because I just saw that. I just looked at the Wrestle Kingdom 10 card. And I was like it's a Shibata Ishii, and then Nakamura
Versus
Styles, and then Okada Tanahashi. Which yeah, I remember that Okada.
maybe it was
Tanahashi
maybe it was Wrestle Kingdom 10. That was the last.
Yeah, Wrestle Kingdom 10.
remember Styles and
the thing is that the Okada Tanahashi match was rated better than after following Nakamura Styles, which is maybe
Insane.
one of the best. That match is one of the best matches I've ever seen. Right? I remember watching that show live and going like, wow. Like, I mean, I saw that and I'm sorry for the guys that have to follow Nakamura and Styles, and I stuck around and watched Okada Tanahashi. And my God, right? That's just like that match. Oof. And Dave basically, yeah,
incredible. I would put all the shock win I would put up there just because it showed that Tanahashi could go completely 180. He comes out, he's arrogant, he's gonna win this match. What's Okada's not even shouldn't be challenging him, and then he makes him look like a champion. And Okada had all these skills at this point, and he was already a very good worker. Too bad he didn't do an excursion on ROH. I mean, he did much better, and obviously he did much better in CMLL. But that just showed to me. It just was like, wow, Tanahashi can really do it all. The other matches I would put out would be, I mean, with him specifically, and this was probably too easy of a one. It was Tanahashi and Ospreay versus they had the Golden Lovers versus Tanahashi and Will Ospreay. Tanahashi had won the G1. Omega was the champion, so they were going to face off. So in December in 2019, they had like a tag match, and Ibushi was going to wrestle Ospreay. I think it was for the Never title, maybe. I can't remember. So they had them pair off in a tag match, and this has the famous moment where Ospreay does Ibushi does a springboard hurricanrana off the top rope on Ospreay, and he just lands perfect, standing in the ring. It's cold, and they catch that camera shot of Ibushi like side-eyeing to the back, like what the hell just happened. That was just such a fantastic match. I remember having a family in the house that hated wrestling, and they were watching that match, and they were just like, "Holy shit, this is amazing!"
I really love New Japan Pro Wrestling. I really love that era. It's really cool that they were able to sell this many tickets on the back of Tanahashi. This is all in Tanahashi. Like, let's be serious.
Oh yeah.
Also, Aaron Wolf's a big part of this. Evil is a big part of this because Evil is a big draw for New Japan. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
Also, one of the biggest TV stars they have on there. You know who I'm talking about? Saya Kamatani. There's like this whole big thing on Japanese social media about her working the card, being on TV again. Because she
did you see that? Did you see the whole the evening gown fight she had?
Yeah.
You
talk about old school, brother. Great. She's amazing.
I was flashing back to like Inoki. That's the kind of thing Inoki would do. Yeah.
If Tony, I hope if somebody does make it over, I don't really want her to come to America because I love what she's doing in Japan. But if she comes to America, she probably would get it like right away, and she'd be over like one match in. But I think that 1-4 card is gonna be incredible. It's gonna be, I don't know what's gonna be on TV and what's just gonna be on the app. But I'm happy that wrestling is healthy in Japan for at least this card, and hopefully New Japan can hopefully they can make some new fans. Hopefully, Suji and Takeshita bring it so that those fans buy into them. And I think that
Doc,
what this card means is like hope, huh?
Who wins the main? Who Who wins?
Tsuji and Takeshita.
I think that I think Tanahashi wins his last match. He should win his last match, but I think because he's Tanahashi, he's gonna give it to Okada.
But who wins the title match?
Who was the world title?
Mm-hmm.
Takeshita.
Yeah, so
I really feel Takeshita's gonna win because they sort of have a plan with him, and because of all the disrespect to Tsuji that the company has for Tsuji, I don't think they see him as that guy. I mean, they could give him a win, and it could just be a Naito first title run, but I think that TV Asahi kind of sees something in Takeshita, and that's why they sort of give him the push that they haven't given to any other of the Reiwa guys.
So you think we end the show on Okada challenging Takeshita?
Possibly.
I mean,
Which they have with which I'm sure AEW will provide all the video clips of them having problems in the same stable for the last year.
yeah, I mean, I think like the way to, I mean, if I was looking at like that's one way I'd end it. Another way I might end it if Tsuji. I swear to God, if Tsuji wins, they should bring out Naito. And people have told me I'm crazy, but it's the biggest stable they've had for the past 5 years. Why not pay it off? And if you're gonna do Tsuji, having him beat Naito, there's money in having him beat Naito.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, he's make him take 2 months off to heal his knees up a little bit, and then.
Yeah, I mean, I think having whoever
Naito
you're
is
going
working
to
Noah.
put, well, that might be, yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
saying like whoever you have is your next guy, having them beat either Okada or Naito or both, right, is something that can help cement them and will draw money. Like I think like people are like, oh, dude, Okada. Like people are saying like Okada can't draw. Like look at we're gonna draw a record house with Okada Tanahashi, right? And some of that is on Tanahashi, but
Arturo, I think that the next big program for Noah for the GHC is going to be Ozawa versus Daito, which is going to be great for pro wrestling. I think that's going to be great for Noah. I want to thank you, BJ, for coming here on the show,
Hey,
joining
thanks,
me
man.
for the last year. You've sort of given me a boost, given us a boost here on State of Wrestling. Arturo,
I appreciate you guys being interested in having me on. You guys you got a great show, Doc, and Arturo, you're an ace at all this stuff, man. You know your business, you know your wrestling, and you got a lot of insight, and you do too, Doc. And I'm glad you guys are on here sharing it, and I'm just really glad that you thought of me to come on and talk with you. It's humbling, and I appreciate it. And Doc, I think you need to go get some chest tests raised to get this car.
Brother, this thing has
Promises for Christmas, you get some chest X-rays. Okay?
Go do that, man.
We want you healthy without bronchitis for 2026.
There you go.
Oh yeah, that's probably what I want to do. Thank you guys both for being on here. Thank you, Arturo, because this is probably the last State of Wrestling for 2025. And thank you for this audience for kind of boosting this. The whole thing is the prescription, but boosting this show to the level it's been at, whether it was talking with other guys, like shout out to you, Brian Zillum, shout out to you, JML, especially JML, for doing all those hours of Hall of Fame audio with us. This has been sort of like a great hobby and experiment for me this year, and yeah, I'm really thankful to have both of you here and to share this. Thank you guys so much. We're closing out this year with some great conversation, and yeah, thank you guys so much for coming here.
Thanks,
guys.
Doc. Thanks, Arturo.
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Año Nuevo.
Feliz Navidad.
Feliz Navidad.
私1個